Ahoy hoy! I'm Planarwalk, and welcome to another one of these open debates. Let me just switch to the main screen and unmute the chat, or not the chat, but unmute the, So, we've got AB Science with us today, and he's on...
Ahoy, hoy.
I've got a lot of people saying ahoy hoy, yes. And today the discussion's supposed to be on what is and isn't gravity, but who knows where it will go. So, yeah, if you're a flat earther, come join us. I'm going to stick to the same kind of format that I did last time because I felt like the last one actually went well, because when I do these things, I like talking. It may sound a little bit narcissistic or something, but I do like talking in these things, and when a lot of other globe earthers are talking, it's one of them things where I just, I don't like interrupting people. But, if you're a flat earther, I'll definitely have you on. Make sure you join the Discord, give yourself the flat earther role, because it helps to distinguish you from the globe earthers. So yeah. And the link to it is in the description. I'll actually post it in the chat as well, so that people know what. But until we get some flat earthers joining us, and how you get a role, there are a few instructions in the rules channel of the Discord server. Just go there. So, before we started the stream, we were discussing a little bit about gravity, because I find that flat earthers tend to have a big misunderstanding of gravity. So the first thing, they think that Newtonian gravity doesn't apply anymore, and they use that to say, oh, you've got proof for Newtonian gravity, but you don't have any proof for Einsteinian gravity. And what would be your response to that?
Well, it's if you'll keep with me with lots of the sciencey stuff. So we have, when we're talking about forces, we have something called a potential function, and it's the gradient of that function. Stay with me. That determines what a force is, and there's that potential function results in that force. Now, in Newtonian mechanics, we've got the potential function, or the potential energy function, associated with the force of gravity, which is gm1 m2 over r. And that results in that force of minus gm1 m2 over r squared. Now, if you look at general relativity, there's a mathematical object called the metric tensor, and that describes the potential in general relativity. And when you try and solve Newton's field equations in the low field limit, or that is in the Newtonian limit, that metric tensor, which describes the potential throughout all space, actually reduces down to the potential energy described by Newtonian mechanics. And this is actually a very important test for general relativity, because at the limits that we experience on a day-to-day basis, it has to reduce down to the same set of equations. So what general relativity describes is the general case of gravitation, whereas Newtonian mechanics describes the special case that we experience in the relatively small objects like the Earth.
Okay. I also have to say, because I think we've got a flat earther in the chat. So, if the flat earther
I
wants...
can just see it.
I think it's Racer FE looks like a flat earther. He's saying stuff that would probably a flat earther would say. It could be a troll. But, if you, as I said, if you want to join in the debate, if you want to debate me, just come onto the Discord and give yourself a role. So And I believe, as I said before, the instructions on how to give yourself a role are in rules. So, and I find that a lot of the I find that a lot of the flat earthers that are in the chat, they don't go onto the Discord and come and debate me for some strange reason.
It's almost as if there's no original thought there.
Yeah. You know, you've got a lot of people that say, you've got a lot of people that, you know, say, oh, I won't debate you because you're too stupid or something. It's like, well, I think that you're too stupid, but I'll still debate you because I think that you're wrong. You know, is it that you actually won't debate me because you know that you're wrong and you just want to, you know, pretend to be a flat earther or something?
Well, the issue is, to debate someone, you need to be able to adapt on the fly. You need to be able to ad lib. And that means that you can't just rely on regurgitating the same old dogma that your cult leaders have been, you know, telling you to regurgitate over and over again.
True. So, you know, it's one of them things which, and there's things that I ask flat earthers all the time which I never actually get an answer for, and that's partially why I do these debates, because, you know, if flat earthers want me to take them seriously, they have to give me an answer for the stuff, and they just don't give me an answer for it, so I have no reason to believe in their bullshit.
Yeah, that's very fair. I mean, I know a lot of flat earthers, you know, they actually ask a lot of valid questions. But the problem is, and this is what I've been thinking about, is, you know, when does a good question become a bad question? And that's the key bit with flat earthers, is they're asking good questions, but the reason that they are bad questions is because they're not actually interested in hearing the answer. They're using that question to establish some sort of rhetoric rather than actually waiting for a response. And that is, you know, a big issue for a debate.
Essentially what they're doing is they're jacking off, right? They say, oh, I'm just asking questions. And I think, as I said, to be valid of just asking questions, you need to first off say that give a... Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. First off, you need to be interested in hearing the answer, right? So
yeah, precisely. And to go with your jacking off analogy, they're jacking off, then the difference is that they're jacking off where the rest of the people are fucking. Right, because you know, the people that are actually interested in hearing the answers are actually having sex, where they're just, you know, sadly wanking in the basement. Shit has just degraded this fast already. Okay, sorry, I won't go there.
But it is a good analogy, I think. even if it could be considered a bit mean to the flat earthers, but you know. But yeah, Racer FE seems to be in the chat. You know, he doesn't seem to be paying attention to us because he's, until they join the voice chat, I see them as a troll. As I said, you know, you can join the Discord server and give yourself a role and join the debate waiting lobby. If I see that someone has done that, then I'll go ahead and add them to the debate. I'll actually drag Discord over so that I can...
he's just tried to quote Einstein.
Yeah, let's actually... whilst we're... let me see where we can find this.
Yeah, let's see what happens around the quote.
Yeah, we've got this thing of a new concept of the universe. Let's see what. And it's on Wikischool. I'll bring this up. How do I? There we go. I'll bring this up on screen. See what's here to it. So it says one great ocean of electromagnetism. Let's see. Control F. Oh, there we go. Control V. Okay, it says here, misconception of electromagnetism. The Einstein theory of the constitution of matter conceives this universe to be one great ocean of electromagnetism, out of which and into which flows the streams of gravitation, matter and energy. So, and it says here, radiation, the equal and opposite mate of gravitation, without which gravitation is impossible, is entirely ignored in this fantastic and unnatural concept. Equally fantastic is the claim of this theory that it is possible to have gravitation without matter and for space to exist without gravity or without matter. So, what do you make of this?
I haven't got a fucking clue right now. I need to spend some more time looking at this. I'm not even sure what the hell is going on here.
Because it does seem to say that, from what I can tell, what it says is that it's, and from what I can tell, it seems to say something along the lines of the things that we've got in the universe are all needed for the universe. So, when it comes to electromagnetism, if we don't have electromagnetism, everything else falls apart. If we don't have space-time, everything else falls apart. If we don't have matter, everything else falls apart.
Yeah, but that makes sense, right? You've got a set of universal constants, which, well, if they are slightly different, things go tits up, and everything would just blink out of existence, really. There is a kind of, I don't want to call it balance because there's nothing mystical about it. It depends on which version of quantum mechanics, of course, you subscribe to, but. Yeah, those constants are just there, and that's it. If they're slightly different, or if gravity were to suddenly disappear, or if electromagnetism would suddenly disappear, then everything would fall apart, right? Electromagnetism, it kind of dominates how we experience, well, how we see things, how we touch things, how we observe everything, and it's just everything. You've got those basic forces, and yeah, if you take any one of those out of the equation, it falls apart.
Yeah, and that seems to be what this is saying. I don't think that it's trying to claim that. And I think he just quoted something within this article. I was looking at it, and
It talks about misconceptions of electromagnetism. Oh, interesting. Okay, I want to have a look at that.
Yeah, I can put a link to the...
Yeah, I've got it.
Oh, you've got it? I'll put a link in the side chat for anyone that wants to have a look.
Yeah, okay, this is crap.
Yeah, I think I just noticed something which...
I literally read one sentence.
Yeah, I think I just noticed something. It says here, electricity is the only force which God makes use of to create this universe, and the only two tools God makes use of for creating his universe of matter and motion are two pairs of spiral vortices. Sounds like a whole lot of...
Yeah, no, it is completely and utterly crap. But it just loaded up, and yeah, I read one sentence, just arbitrarily from the middle of the thing. I just scrolled down, read the first sentence that my eye landed on, and
Yeah, and
It is utter shite. It's demonstrably incorrect.
yeah, and it says here that which science calls magnetism and believes to be a force which has which has the power of lifting tons of steel is God's still light. I kind of I didn't quite read on until just now, and I thought maybe it was using something like God, because I noticed the words God there, right? And I was I hadn't really read on it, and I noticed the words God, and I thought it was just using God as kind of, as kind of a way to tie science and religion without, trying to undermine science or anything.
Yeah, that's okay. That's perfectly understandable. I know quite a few physicists who are working on it, but
yeah, or
yeah.
How a lot of I'm trying to remember like a particular quote which I don't mind. It's we say the universe is created by God and that He created the fundamentals of the universe, but we can't really understand or
Yeah, and that's okay. But that's the view of God that I can kind of I can get on board with, at least, that if there is a God, the limits of his creations were to set the initial boundary conditions which allow this universe to develop. And if you want to find God there in that bit, that is fine. So, and if there is a God, and if that's his method of creation, fair enough, that's grand. But don't tell me that he is an omnipotent or benevolent overlord, because it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the quote from Einstein. Holy shit! Okay, so I looked it up, and there's only two things that seem to. There's only two matches from what I can find.
Shit! You've nearly got a Google whack.
What?
You've nearly got a Google whack.
And one of them I can't find. I can't actually find anything to do with the quote.
Someone's talking about monopoles in the chat. That looks interesting. I just saw the word monopoles. No? Okay. No, it's just rhetoric, just being a twat.
Yeah, this other one doesn't seem to have the quote that I'm looking for. Whenever it refers to magnetism, it usually says it usually has both. It usually talks about both electromagnetism and gravity, saying that they're two fundamental forces of nature. At least from what I can see.
Yes. Flint, Reed. Magnetic particles with only one magnetic pole, theoretically possible but never seen in nature, and flat Earth would be a huge monopole object. Flint, Reed. I just want to interact with that particular chat.
Okay.
Actually, magnetic monopoles are theoretically not possible. But we do have some things which suggest that there are magnetic monopole-like objects in certain materials called spin ice materials. And it's actually a very interesting thing. This is one of the objects that I study. And it is mainly interesting because we do observe things which are not quite particles, but they're quasi-particles, and they act like, they act in a way that magnetic monopoles would act if they existed. but they're not true monopoles because you do have a particle with the opposite charge always forming in your same material. But this is a really cool topic. As I said, this is one of the things that I am actually doing research in. Yeah, it's a very complex topic, but theoretically they're not possible. But in practice, we do see things that kind of look like that.
Racer FE says, you dummies don't understand what I just wrote. And he says, gravity is the hyperbolic dielectric inertial acceleration of the ether towards the subterranean dielectric inertial plane of Earth mediated by density and buoyancy. And I just want to say that sounds like word salad.
No, that's not word salad. Word salad that's been digesting in stomach juices for a couple of days and has just been regurgitated. It is utter shite. It means nothing.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what flat earthers say. They say you need some croutons for that salad. As I said, I don't want to eat that salad. Racer FE, you say that if it sounds like word salad, that means you're too dumb to understand the words. No, it means that you haven't explained it in simple enough terms. If you can't explain something in simple terms, then you don't understand it well enough.
Hold on, I'm just going to duck out for 5 seconds. Back in a sec.
Okay. So, you can come on and actually explain what you mean, right? And then... I've got to mention. Yeah, someone said we don't understand what Racer just said. Does Racer understand what he said? I think he feels like he understands what he said, but he can't explain it in simple terms, which is, if you want to talk science, it's very good to be able to explain it in simple terms to someone that doesn't know what you're on about. And he's talking about dielectric acceleration, and it's like, okay, what does dielectric acceleration mean? Well, come on and discuss. It would be a lot easier if you just come on, discuss what you're talking about, so that we understand what you're talking about, and then we can go, well, here's why you're wrong, or maybe you've got it right. I don't know. And one person says, does photons, neutrons, and electrons need gravity to do what they do? Good question. And it is possible, but because I suppose to form an atom, I suppose gravity would... I'm thinking after Big Bang, but if gravity just suddenly disappeared, I suppose that they would still do what they do, so... But I might be wrong about that. Good question. And Racer FE is just going on about gravity is non-point specific, incoherent dielectric acceleration towards the inertial plane of Earth, which is below the surface. Of the cylindrical electromagnet we live on. So there's electricity running through the Earth, which is making it magnetic. You're saying read Tesla, Steinmetz, Heaviside, Maxwell, etc. Huh? Yeah, Dog just said a plane below the surface of the Earth, a cylinder. Yeah, it's because your question actually made sense. It's a good question. Could we ask you guessed about the poles on flat Earth? It seems their model would be... So, Flint readers Flint Reed is saying, could we ask your guest about the poles on flat Earth? It seems as though their model would be a monopole-like object.
Actually, I have
I think you've just
quite a while, and
you just broke
I
up for a
think
second there.
sorry.
Oh, you're just cutting out for a second. I think you're back now.
All right. Yeah, I'm bouncing between my 4G and my Wi-Fi. It's a bit of a ball ache. So yes, whether it would be a monopole. Well, if you want the Earth's magnetic field to risk it does.
What was that?
Sorry, if you want the Earth's mag respond the way it does, as we can measure on a really super complex system, probably I would imagine something called a skyrmion structure. Now, these skyrmions we can kind of build on, on the scale of and if it becomes much larger than that, the whole thing falls apart. There's too much associated with it. So that's not a stable solution. And if the magnetic field were a monopole, it would still behave in an entirely different way.
Was that you said? I think you said you would behave in an entirely different way.
Yeah, if there were, yeah. So if the North Pole were a magnetic monopole, then the magnetic field would behave in a completely different way. And then if we're assuming that on the flat Earth model that there is a rim, which is then the magnetic South Pole, then you'd need a magnetic texture which is so complex that. And and as I said, that magnetic texture, we have seen this in the lab, but it is usually around 5 or 10 nanometers in diameter. Anything larger than that, and it becomes too energetically unstable.
Oh, okay.
So it falls apart.
Yeah, because I have heard a lot of flat earthers talking about magnets and all that kind of stuff, but to me, it just sounds like they are they're pulling
talking out their ass.
Yeah, I was just gonna say pulling shit out of their ass, but talking out of their ass also works. I believe that's what we call a fart.
No, because farts generally make more sense.
True. It's more like a I'm trying to work out a way to describe it. There's might be indescribable.
Well, it is just regurgitation of the same cultish doctrine that we see all over in the flat Earth, or just generally within the conspiracy theory community, right?
Mm. And like when it comes to when it comes to one thing, I saw that there was. They said about an east to west magnetic field, and I was thinking, wait, wouldn't that make magnetic compasses point east or west? If the field was running east to west, at least that's the way that I understand.
Yeah, it should do because magnetic compass, right? You've got to think of that needle. That needle is something called a magnetic dipole, right? And there's a particular energy associated with magnetism where you have a magnetic field running in one direction, and then you can position a magnetic dipole at an angle to that direction.
Okay,
and there's an energy associated with that, and that's called the Zeeman energy. And essentially, that is why it's minimized. That causes the to be aligned. I think that just.
Yeah, you were cutting out for a second there.
Yes. Hold on. I'm just gonna butt out, restart my data connection, and then I'll be back in a moment.
Okay. So, MCToon just posted in the chat this document talking about Michelson. I believe, at least from what I know, I might be wrong about this, but I believe Michelson and Michelson-Morley are two different things. At least from what I've heard, but this one is talking about Michelson and Morley. And yeah, I don't like when I can't search, because when I can't search through this document, unfortunately. I like having the ability to do that, because it allows me to look for what I'm supposed to be looking for.
Okay, so I'm seeing a note in the chat, and as I've been, been digging a bit on Racer FE, I'm seeing a thing from MCToon saying that Michelson-Morley concluded that the ether does not exist.
Yeah.
And the Michelson-Morley experiment in isolation did not conclude that, because there were two possible outcomes of the Michelson-Morley experiment. One is that the Earth is not moving, which actually doesn't rule out an ether whatsoever, or the other one is, and the ether does not exist. But because other experiments and other observations already rule out that the Earth is, rule out the Earth being stationary, therefore it proved that the Earth didn't exist. So when you're talking to flat earthers, then you can't really say that Michelson-Morley itself ruled out that the ether exists. It's the massive body of evidence that ruled out that the ether doesn't exist, and Michelson-Morley just really put the final nail in that coffin.
Because MCToon just said AB Science. Well put.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I kind of looked into it a bit more, after I read Robertson Genesis, Verbal Diarrhea, around the Michelson-Morley experiment, in his bullshit around Einstein and stuff like that. So I kind of looked at it a bit further, because, I've been using these Michelson-Morley experiments a bit, over time, but not actually to try and detect the ether, because there's no point, right? But we've been doing it for other stuff. So it was actually interesting in reading the original bit where that came from, and actually that's what I find the most fun about the whole flat Earth thing. It's just going back to basics and reading up on the history of science, which I've never really paid too much attention to.
Yeah, and it really helps. Like when it comes to flat Earth, now I understand the Coriolis effect. If it wasn't for flat Earth, I probably wouldn't understand it. But it's also because I understand that the Earth isn't flat, because there's too much evidence that goes against the Earth being flat.
Yeah.
And I mean, there is a small possibility, but that the possibility of Earth being flat would mean that the light would have to act in a completely different way to what I'd expect it to act. It would mean that there's something that causes the moon to be eclipsed that isn't the Earth. It would mean that there's something to do with just all kinds of things, which magnetism would have to act in a completely different way to how we believe it to act. There'd have to be some force similar to gravity that is causing things to move towards the ground, and all this stuff would be far too. And it's not just the fact that all these things would have to be replaced. It's the fact that all these things would have to be replaced, and you'd have to, and it would be so conveniently working out that it can seem like the Earth is a globe, which is, to me...
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. It's it's like, yeah, a scientific theory can be improved upon, right? But there's only one thing that we know with 100% certainty, and that is that scientific theory is incomplete.
Yeah.
However, whatever kind of updates there will be to scientific theory and everything, because it is going to develop. There's going to be things that that we will be able to explain and we'll be able to incorporate, but all of those need to explain what we already can explain, right? And this is what I said earlier with general relativity about the metric tensor reducing down to Newtonian mechanics. It's because if general relativity couldn't do that, then general relativity failed straight away. So any new theory that we develop, it still has to explain what we observe in pretty much the same way, even though there might be a small addition to the mathematics or something like that to which reduces down to insignificance in what we see. But the scientific theory is incomplete, and it may become more complete. And there may be a lot of ideas that we have right now which are going to be thrown out. But there is one thing that is not going to be thrown out, and that is the Earth being a sphere, because guess what? We checked.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I just noticed that Multi-Tom-Tom is in the chat, and I've noticed him on other Flat Earthers channels in the chat, so I believe he's an actual Flat Earther. So if he wants
great.
If he wants to join the debate, he's welcome to. Just join the Discord server. I'll even post a link for you so that you... here we go. Posting a link right now. There you go. Join the Discord.
Right.
Join the Discord server, come on, give yourself a role, and we'll discuss this, Unless you don't actually want to... Because here's the thing, if you don't give any proof of your flat Earth, then I'm not going to believe it. Or, no, not proof, evidence. I often mix them two up.
Yeah, but that's okay. In common parlance, we do have to make allowances for common parlances, because I can do the complete honest, complete scientist, being very careful with words and say everything like, as far as we can measure, as far as we understand. So it just gets a bit tedious, right?
Yeah.
If you've ever been to, a scientific conference, if we really had to go as far as we know, as far as we can measure, then that is 90% of the things we say, right? So when we're talking science, just take all of that stuff as a given and go, well, as far as we can tell, as far as we know.
Yeah. I think Multi-Tom-Tom... he says, I usually charge half of the super chats. And it's like, what?
What? Someone's in it. Someone is in the flat Earth thing for the money.
Yeah, it's like, does he expect me to, give him currently I've had no super chats, but currently, so does he expect me to give him half the money that I make for this just so I can have him on? So, what? I mean, coming on is a voluntary thing. If I had to give half the money to everyone that came on, if I had to give you half the money, then and then multi tom.
No, NASA already pays me enough for my services, so it's all right.
There's someone that's waiting called DRG Dog 3, right? And I'm not inviting people on until they have a role. So you've got to give yourself a role. It explains how to give yourself a role in the rules channel, which is right up the top. So and currently, because I've got no one, and I will let Fight the Flat Earth join. But if if we actually get a flat earther here, then
yeah, the instant there's a flat earther in there, I'll put myself on mute and I'll go down to the moderator role. That will allow me to go out to the shop and get some Maltesers as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll let Craig in. There we go. Yeah, Fight the Flat Earth. Because he's a mod, he can join automatically without me.
Of course. Hello, Craig. What's up? How's it going?
Not bad. Just had a really nice show with Simon Dan. We showed him your video about you exposing his legs. He's quite scared Planarwalk.
Yeah, I saw that part.
That was a really nice show. It's been obviously we've had like a couple of debates on there recently, so that was nice to have a little bit of a change of pace. But where's the flat earthers?
I don't know. There's one in the chat called Multi Tom Tom, but he's wanting half the super chats. Oh goodness,
Multi Tom Tom.
And
yeah, how about you make your own channel, Multi Tom Tom? He's a bit of a troll anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if at this point, if he wanted half the super chats, like if I gave everybody in this stream half the super chats, I'd get no money. So
yeah,
no. Okay, so we can promise him that all the super chats received up to now, right? He can have that.
Yeah, I can promise him that. And all the super chats received up until now in this stream.
Precisely in this stream, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, multi-tom. Come on, why don't you just stop being a little pussy? Because you've come on plenty of times on other streams. I've seen you on Red Stream. I've seen you with Geostriver. So why don't you come on and actually try and present a coherent argument? Because that would be a first.
Yeah. We had DRG Dog just quit. I don't know why. He joined. It seemed like he wanted maybe to debate. Simon Dan says, I need all the super chats, please.
Yes, Simon Dan needs the money.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so there's £10 just came in, but we've offered here multi-tom-tom everything up to the point where I said now, so this £10 doesn't go to him if he comes on.
Yeah. I'll put it up on the screen because, although the problem is that I have a whole lot of white being blasted into my eyes now, so it's very bright. It's
blind.
Has anyone used Discord light mode?
I turned it off straight away.
I hate Discord.
It is the only thing I'll turn into kind of dark mode. But yeah.
Yeah. I like dark mode because when it comes to dark mode, especially as a programmer, you'll be up until 10 o'clock at night just doing programming. You have to have dark mode enabled.
No, my friend. That's why you're doing it wrong. That's the whole reason why I don't use dark mode, because that means I can program for days on end.
What?
Because I don't want to be sleeping when I'm programming.
I mean,
it's a waste of time.
You do have a point there. But yeah,
it's because the moment I go to sleep, I forget what I do, and I'm really bad at commenting. So I'll end up waking up in the morning, looking at it, and go, "What the fuck was I doing?" and end up rewriting the whole thing.
Yeah, when I bring up things like Visual Studio, it's always in dark mode because it's much better on the eyes, and it's probably actually even though I'd like glasses, because the only glasses I have are these this pair of sunglasses, and but I don't want to have glasses as a necessity. So
yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. So yeah, I noticed we have Simon Dan in the chat as well. Why doesn't he come on?
I think if I had to guess, I'm guessing at the end of that science or satire episode, Fight the Flat Earth probably mentioned something about.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he's going to be playing some FIFA with Team.
Yeah, I heard that.
Well, he's asking for the super chats, so he better come up.
Well, that's just for him being in the chat. You know, if Simon Dan's around, you have to pay him.
I see. Yeah. Oh, this is part of the
appearance fees.
Yeah,
like, it's the appearance fees.
He's the top tier NASA one, so we're not quite on the level yet, so we have to actually pay the fees to have him in.
Yeah, I mean, I only make my money from NASA through honest work. Not, they don't even pay me for
NASA,
the
honest,
stuff.
don't be silly. NASA lie about everything. I mean, of course NASA are honest.
And Simon Dan.
Simon needs 20% before.
So, how much did you have to pay Simon Dan to have him on your stream? Like, because you're actually talking to him.
Oh yeah, well, I'm skint now. I've just had to mortgage my house and give my car away and stuff.
Okay, so it's a big charge then.
Yeah, an hour and a half of his time, that's wiped me out.
Yeah,
that's what you get with those shills. They're expensive.
Yeah.
I just noticed someone in the chat said, Planarwalk, during my early days of programming, there was no way to turn the teletype or punch card to dark mode.
Oh, we've got Ava Lovelace. Oh, Jesus.
Is Jesus here?
What?
Yeah, Jesus is probably here. Jesus is all around us. You should know this.
Ah, yes, of course.
Jesus is inside all of us.
That's how they're going to prove the flat earth.
Dirty bugger.
Jesus is just going to come again and be like,
oh, Jesus Christ, I don't want Jesus to come again, because last time it was just, it got messy.
Yeah, there's something to do with, I think there was a lot of blood the last time, so I think he needs to get checked.
Yeah, I've got some penicillin for him.
Yeah, but I always like the quote from Godless or not from Godless Engineer, but Godless Engineer mentioned about it. So I'm just gonna search that on Discord for a second. Wrong thing. There's so many search things. Godless Engineer. There we go. And surely, there we go. So yeah, one person says, "Of course, Jesus is real. He is my cousin, Jesus, or is it Jesus? Jesus Benito Gonzalez Perez Martinez."
Yeah, it's Jesus, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. I'm not good with Spanish.
Neither am I, but I can do it.
So Morty Tom Tom is not even responding in the chat.
Maybe he's
what
left.
Bitch medias. No, I can still tag him.
Okay. So yeah. Mo Lester said, Planarwalk is fake news and a globalist. I'm pretty sure he's Poe Lester.
Oh, talking about news, thanks for covering my Riley thing in Flat Earth News.
Oh, yeah. As I said, I'm not mirroring the video, because I've noticed that a lot of people did mirror the video. I'm just...
No, that's cool.
Yeah. I did add a little bit in, it was no longer than 30 seconds, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Any exposure for it is good. I just want to rub it in Anthony Riley's face as much as possible.
Because the whole George. Actually, that's a good thing to discuss in this thing, which turns out to so far it's not being a debate. And I would, if a flat earther wants to come on, they're more than welcome to. They just need to join the Discord. join the Discord, follow the things in the rules. It's quite clear that it says to join the debate, you must have either a globe earther or flat earther role. To get it, go to Cyberroom and type in either $rank globe earther or $rank flat earther. And then it says you need to go to the debate lobby. So, but yeah, so seeing as we're just discussing things until a flat earther decides to show up, because I think, because I have messaged Why You Are an Idiot on Discord, and he's currently not online. I thought that he might show up, but
yeah, man, goodness, that guy is beyond stupid.
Yeah. So yeah, so you talked with George Musa, or how do you pronounce his name? Because I think I butchered it. Musa.
Yeah, George Musa.
George Musa. Okay.
Yeah, so I talked with him last Wednesday, and obviously had the interview, and I've recorded it and edited it, taken out a couple of bits so I can make a few trailers for it, and it'll be released on May the 20th for the start of Sleeping Warrior Week.
Yeah. I'll probably actually make a video for my own channel for Sleeping Warrior Week, because, I haven't really responded to him much. I've only really responded to him once, and, that was when I was talking about independent variables, and because as soon as I heard Nathan Oakley say about independent variables, it seemed legit, but I felt like something was off. I felt like he was using something wrong, and it's just one of them things which that they're using something wrong because you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just I thought about it for maybe 10 minutes after the first debate that I had with Nathan Oakley, right? And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, what is he getting wrong here? Because I know that he's getting something wrong. And then I realized what he got wrong, and it was that an independent variable does not have to be the cause. Because, there's so many measurements that you can take, and if you want to say that the independent variable has to be the cause, you have to say, well, when you want to measure the speed of sound, you'd have your dependent variable. Well, the way that I saw it is you'd have the dependent variable being something like the distance you are from the what's it called? From the sound source, and you'd have your dependent variable being the time that it takes. Apparently, it would be the other way around, but that's. I suppose that can be debated, and that doesn't mean that distance causes time. It means that distance is a factor to the time it takes.
Yeah, they just don't understand the whole dependent variable thing at all, and they think they've got a big gotcha moment with it.
Yeah,
and that's the funniest thing. And no matter how much you convince them of things like time can be an independent variable. They just don't take it, and they just stick with this one version of the scientific method and what constitutes actual science that came from quantum erasure, and then Nathan Oakley started spouting it, and now it's just that's their gotcha thing. Well, was that done according to the scientific method? No, I don't say it was, so therefore it doesn't matter. And even if things that were happened didn't comport to the scientific method or whatever, it still doesn't mean that the things that we discovered from them are any less valid, because it's still right.
Yeah.
I don't need to use the scientific method to get a ruler and measure something to know how long it is.
Yeah, they use things like these whole independent variables, and I'm thinking, well, that's for a formal hypothesis. You want to have your dependent and independent variables, and the time at which something happens can be a independent variable. So that's the way that I usually see the independent variable of time. So if you want I was just going to...
Sorry, I'll let you finish your point. Yeah.
So if you want to just say take the measurement of a planet, right? you can, the way that you'd do it is you'd have your dependent variable be the time at which you expect the planet to appear, and your dependent variable would be the planet appearing, right? And
Yeah.
So,
So the
Someone's trying to get into Discord. Apparently, I'm not sure they're a flat earther or not. Molester.
Molester.
Yeah, that
Really?
name sounds like a troll.
Yeah. So the issue with the independent variable, it's they take a very narrow definition of it, and it's a very pure mathematical definition, as it is the variable that you are manipulating, i.e., it is the variable that you are studying an expression and seeing how that mathematical expression changes as you manipulate one variable in that expression, and that is your independent variable.
Yeah.
And that's when they're talking about, physical manipulation of it, even though it's not physical. But there comes the issue, right? Because firstly, they take it as, well, there's one thing, which is your independent variable, which is problematic to begin with, especially when you deal with statistical methods. And then secondly, they restrict it to what an independent variable can be, and that you need to physically manipulate it yourself, as in you are adjusting. You are adjusting the quantity that is, and that quantity that you are adjusting is your independent variable. And now, to give it some context, there's a particular class of experiments that we do, and it's called a magneto-optical Kerr effect measurement. And what we do is we apply magnetic fields across samples, and we bounce lasers off it. We bounce polarized lasers off it, and we measure the polarization angle from the reflected light. Because that gives us information about how the sample was magnetized and everything. But in that sense, our independent variable, the way we treat it is, it's the magnetic field that we apply. But because we are not directly manipulating the magnetic field, according to them, that is not the independent variable, because that is not the bit that we are physically changing. We are physically changing the current that goes through electromagnets, or even worse, we are physically manipulating the resistance in the circuits, or even further, we are just changing the angle of the potentiometer that manipulates the resistance of the circuit, which informs the current, which informs, and it just becomes not very useful.
Yeah, I just want to say that I've been trying to get Truth Warrior in, right? Because I think you might have noticed that I dragged him in. Because you got to go to debate waiting lobby, and I dragged him in, and then he left.
Yeah, I saw him in there, and then he was gone.
Yeah, and he also had himself deafened and muted. So, if he wants to join, he's more than welcome to. Okay, I think it might be that Mo Lester guy. So he might be a Poe, but it'll be fun to see to see if he is a Poe or not. Because if the best that flat earthers have to offer are Poes, then that says a lot about flat Earth.
Absolutely.
If that's the best that flat earthers have to offer, then it says a lot about flat earthers. And I don't think that there's any Poe globe earthers. At best, you'd have maybe Dawn. Okay, I'm gonna drag him in again.
Well, no, Dawn is not a Poe globe earther.
Poe's just a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep wanting to say she, but that's because Dawn is, chick's
I go
name.
with it.
Yeah. Ahoy, hoy, Truth Warrior.
Warrior of Truth.
Can you hear us?
I can, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can.
So,
Right,
this debate is about what is and isn't gravity. You want to say what you think gravity is, or say what you understand gravity to be, and we'll start from there.
Right, okay. Gravity is a force, basically. That's what I believe it to be, at least.
Okay.
Yep, it can certainly be measured as a force. That is, the way that gravity is used every day is obviously measuring it as a force. Are you a flat earther? Are you arguing against gravity, or?
I'm not arguing against gravity itself, no.
Okay, so I'm guessing you believe that gravity exists, just not in the way that Newton or Einstein describe it. Am I correct?
Sorry. I just want to clarify. Truth Warrior, are you a flat earther?
Technically, no, but I don't understand the fight against it.
Okay, but you are a globe skeptic. Let's just use red pill philosophies.
Yeah, I would.
Okay. In that case, I'm gonna duck out and just be a mod here. Okay.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
So, Truth Warrior, what don't you understand about the globe Earth? Like, that's my question.
I mean, right, okay, that's a fair question. If you want to dispel the whole globe Earth thing, the whole flat Earth thing once and for all, you can literally just take a picture from space. That's it.
That's been done.
Yeah.
Without using
Many
a fisheye
times.
lens.
They didn't use a fisheye lens in 1972 on a Hasselblad camera with an 80mm lens.
I'm going to look this up. Give me a source.
Do you have a
Just
source?
1972 blue marble. Just Google that.
Right, okay. Give me a second.
I'm also going to grab one of my bookmarks here. I've got it somewhere.
And then, I mean,
I'm familiar with this blue marble, yeah. It's taken by one of the Apollo astronauts, right?
Yeah, taken by Eugene, I don't want to butcher his name, Kerman. Is it Kerman or Sermon? I don't want to say it wrong. I think it's Eugene Kerman.
I think it's Sermon.
Sermon, one of the two. Yeah, it was taken by Eugene Sermon using the Hasselblad camera, 80mm lens, so actual physical film.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there was no fisheye lens. It was a direct photograph taken.
Right, but with the astronauts themselves, none of them could admit which one of them actually took the photo itself.
That's untrue. We know it was Eugene Sermon because he says that he's the one that took it. The nonsense around, we don't know who did this and did that it's been something that flat earthers have tried to use to conflate the issue, but we know very well who it was. We know that particular photo was taken by Eugene Sermon, so there isn't really any dispute around that, to be honest.
Right, but there's also Ronald Evans and Harrison Schmitt, both of the Apollo 17. They were on the crew as well. They say they took it.
No, it's accepted and known that Eugene Sermon was the one that took it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of photos that all of them took, but the actual one that they used for the 1972 blue marble, which the only thing they've done to, I want to say edit, but it's not really the word, they reorientated it so that the North Pole is at the top. Because when the picture was taken, from their point of view, the South Pole was at the top. So when we see the picture normally, the only thing that's been done to it is it's been flipped 180 degrees.
Right.
And
okay.
The argument of who took it isn't really the point. The point is that there was still a picture taken of the Earth by a physical film that is there and anyone can see. So yeah, there is the first time really that the whole Earth was taken in one picture. And obviously before that, we can go to, I think it was 1947 when the Americans captured the German rocket and used that to go up and take the first pictures of the Earth's curve. That again wasn't a fisheye lens, that was just taken with a normal camera. So then we could go on to the Himawari 8, which captures the entire side that Japan is on every 10 minutes. That doesn't use a fisheye lens. We could go to the Discover satellite, which is, I think, 1 million miles out, that doesn't use a fisheye lens and images the entire planet quite often. So yeah, there is many, many, many examples of pictures from space that aren't fisheye lens. And the fact that most flat earthers just go, well, they're fake, doesn't mean that they are.
All right, can you prove curvature to me then?
Yeah, 100%. I'm doing that on May the 25th.
And how are you going to do that exactly?
With a bunch of people measuring the angle of the sun at the same time across the American continent. I'm going to live map it onto a globe and flat Earth and see which it comports with.
And where's that going to be on exactly? Is that on a YouTube channel or something?
It's going to be on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, as much as possible. It's called Project Aristophanes, and it's just building up now. It's being done between me and George Musser, who is a career scientist and a contributing editor for Scientific America. So we're doing Project Aristophanes together to basically recreate Aristophanes' observations, but on a much grander scale. So we chose 4 locations across the American continent, Montreal, New York City, California, and Lima. And we have a bunch of people along the same latitude lines of those locations. And on May the 25th, we're going to have a bunch of people do the same observations that Aristophanes did at the same time across many different points in the American continent, send me the data in real time live. And obviously it'll be live streamed to people's Twitter accounts, people's Facebook accounts, etc., etc. So anyone that wants to get involved can. It's a completely open thing. And I will, if Planarwalk lets me, I'll put the link to the form to join in the description of this video. Yep. So once we've done those observations and we come out with measuring the circumference and we get the same observation that we get the same value that is the current accepted value of approximately 25,000 miles, then that will pretty much confirm that there is curvature that we say there is. Apart from that, recently on my channel on Science or Satire episode 6, Russian Vids was on, and Red's Rhetoric joined the stream live from location on Tampa Bay, where he was filming the curvature of the Earth. And you could see the buildings in a distance, basically hidden behind a wall of water. And then one of the things he filmed was shadows creeping up the side of a building from another building, showing that the sun is illuminating the building. So the sun is casting the shadow from below one of the buildings, which is an observation that is 100% impossible on a flat Earth. So if you want to ask me where's the curvature, I can literally present you with thousands of evidence of the curvature.
One thing I just got to say to Craig, and I just want to say that for a bit there, it did sound like you're gish galloping a bit. Just want to let you know that you should give Truth Warrior a bit of time to respond.
Okay, sorry, I was just letting him know all the observations of
No, it's fine. I appreciate it. What do you have exactly against a flat Earth exactly? Like, why do you have to fight against it? Like, what's the problem with it?
Because it's an insult to science, and it's not just that. It's you get these people that are pushing flat Earth as fact, and they're so passionate about it and so vehement about it, and you get vulnerable people that will fall for this nonsense, and it will ruin their lives. It will literally ruin their lives. Team Skeptic had to debate somebody from a storage unit because he'd lost his house and his wife and his kids, and everything, because flat Earth can ruin someone's mind. If you get to the point where you believe in flat Earth, then you have to believe that everyone is lying to you, that everything is wrong, everything you've been told is a lie. And that kind of thinking is dangerous for a person. So of course I'm going to fight against something that is blatantly false and dangerous.
Right, okay, fair enough.
And I'll expand on that, because when it comes to things like religion, and when I talk about religion, I'm mostly talking about the dangerous religions, like when it comes, let's say take Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, which, they seem innocent to start off with, but if you talk to ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, you find out that, in the Jehovah's Witness cult, it's very, there's a whole lot of things that you've got to do. There's a whole lot of rules, and so it's really dangerous, and that's another thing that's worth fighting against. And you've got people speaking out against it, so I think that anything dangerous should be criticized.
Yeah, so I'm getting a feeling that this is not so much of a debate as an actual lovely chat. So I'm very happy to see that, and thank you for actually coming on the channel and being a nice guy. So for me, in case you're not familiar with me, I'm a research scientist. I'm a physicist. I work on lots of things. And for me, the biggest issue is it's not so much flat Earth itself as an idea. If people want to believe that the Earth is flat, that's fine. That's on to them. But it's an anti-intellectual idea, and the problem is that our society, one of the cornerstones of society, of civilization, for all its flaws, one of the cornerstones is science. And if you start employing anti-science ideas and you start spreading them around, because it's not, the flat Earth, it's not about some truth or anything. And if you start spreading an anti-science message, that does become dangerous, because we have seen people, destroying their lives as, such as Nathan Thompson, who, end up having to film from their cars and stuff like that.
Why did they become homeless?
Why?
Why are they filming from cars and whatnot? Like, what happens?
Because flat earthers ruin their life.
Yeah, it's because these. You got to remember that on certain levels, and I'm not going to say all levels. I'm not going to dismiss the whole flat Earth movement as that, but a lot of levels, it is a cult movement that encourages people to disengage from society, because everyone, as Craig said, everyone is lying to you, and that creates a distrust for society. Now, I am not going to say that society is.
I just want to clarify on the cult point there. The way that you said the cult is something I very much agree with, because once you are in this cult, the only information that you will ever accept is from other people that are within this cult. You shun outside influences. You shun people that aren't part of this cult. And that's one of the reasons why it ruins your life, is because you get so involved and invested in this that nothing else seems to matter.
Yeah, precisely. And if I were to be really harsh about it, it's like, okay, it's your own life you're ruining, and it is horrible that you are ruining your own life because of some lie or some misinformation that you've been told. But we are now getting into a stage where it's these people's children that being given this information and told not to trust what their teachers are being told. And we're talking about potentially, really bright children that have got a whole future ahead of them. And they're being told to question things in a certain way, because I have to reiterate, questioning science is not a bad thing. That's a very good thing. But they're being taught how to question it in a certain way, and that certain way of questioning it really excludes them from that, and excludes them to a large part of being an active participant of society. Because you've got to remember that a lot of flat Earth rhetoric, it really forces people to, rather than looking at society, regarding its flaws and everything, and trying to participate in it to make it to make this life better for people. What they're doing is they're rejecting society, and they're trying to put themselves away from it, and they're trying to exclude themselves from society.
One thing that I do,
and that is very problematic.
One thing that I do have to say, though, is that I don't think Flat Earth is a cult. But I do think that they have a cult-like mindset.
Yeah.
Yes. I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, because
I'm gonna have to drop out now, bud.
Okay.
All right, dude.
I will speak to you guys later.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Good night.
Because I kind of like using the bite model from Stephen Hassan, I think it is. And when I describe a cult, I use that model, and I don't think that Flat Earth fits that model. So.
Right. Okay.
So, Truth Warrior, I'm just wondering, do you still have any sort of things that you want to ask us?
Right, yeah. Do you think YouTube plays a part in promoting it? Because, like, I'm browsing YouTube, for example, I'm watching a video, and then, in the corner I see, oh, there are no forests on flat Earth, wake up, or something.
Yeah, I think that it might have a role, like from personal experience, and so this is anecdote, so you can't use this as a broad thing, but from personal experience, it hasn't, because I didn't get into flat Earth stuff because of YouTube, and a person that I knew who actually introduced me to flat Earth, he didn't get into it because of YouTube. He got into it because of a friend. So I think that a lot of it is to do with networking. So, kind of like how people spread their religion. It's not through technology, it's often through networking. And
right.
So I think...
Yeah, but technology enables that and makes it easier.
Yeah. So I think that, I don't think that it's a coincidence that we have a lot of flat earthers now, that there's, information is readily accessible, but a lot of people don't go ahead and look for the particular information that, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I would like to add to that, because what you're referring to here is about kind of meme theory, about spreading the message from one person to another, and how the message can establish its own kind of... It can become an organism on itself that spreads around.
Yeah.
Now, what the issue is that flat Earth, it's not a thing because of YouTube and social media, but it does allow it to spread farther and spread more people, because it does require one person contacting another and giving them a message, and YouTube allows the individual to create a video and reach a large number of people. And people who are very susceptible to that are the people who are quite vulnerable in society, because in a lot of situations you'll find out, especially the more lonely people, the people who already feel disengaged from society, that they get into touch with these ideas through YouTube, and they become more susceptible to these messages. So I'm not going to go as far as saying that flat Earth is because of YouTube, because flat Earth is, the idea is older than YouTube, it's older than social media, it's older than the internet, but it does help spread the message, and it does help spread the message to a lot of the more vulnerable people in society who are looking for a group identity.
Yeah.
And this is one that's accessible.
I think you nailed it there with the group identity there, and so yeah, I think that's I agree with AB Science. So yeah.
So Planarwalk, you used to make gaming content. Why did you suddenly change to a flat Earth channel? I don't understand.
That's a good question, and it's to do with it is partially to do with the videos that I make, because when I got into a lot of the videos I watch, it's got a lot to do with that. So when I first got into YouTube, a lot of it was, technically when I first got into YouTube, it was just posting random videos that I had made, right? It was,
yeah, definitely.
but then I actually came across PewDiePie. I don't know, you might have heard of him. He used to be the most subscribed person on YouTube. And so I was actually kind of inspired by him to make my own channel to do with gaming videos. And some people may say, oh, you watch PewDiePie? And it's like, yeah, I even now I still watch him sometimes, and some people may subscribe from that, but everyone can like who they want to like. So when it came to that, I was inspired by him, and then I started my own gaming channel because I felt like I could do that. And I could do that because probably not as entertaining as people like Markiplier, PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye, those people, but some people probably thought that I was being entertaining, and I got better. definitely. But what happened is I eventually came across a lot of these atheist YouTubers, and I kind of, part of me was saying, okay, I want to make a channel to talk about atheism, because, you know, it's something that I feel strongly about when it comes to religion and that kind of stuff.
Are you religious then? Or are you an atheist?
I'm an atheist, and
Okay, right.
I feel like religion is a net harm on society. So I was thinking about making a channel about it, and I was actually initially going to make a channel called Atheism and a Half with a few other people, but they kind of pulled out, and I was like, oh, damn. So I eventually decided, you know, I'll start putting content to do with atheism and to do with flat Earth and to do with stuff, because it was also at about the time that I decided to actually go for it, I was getting into Professor Stick and all that kind of stuff, and I saw how they were adding a new kind of take, and I wanted to add my take on it. So, you know, and so, yeah, I've got videos. If I go back and have a look at some of my videos, you can see how I was slowly getting into it. I was also posting memes as well.
So it's a slow transition then?
Yeah. So,
right, okay. Well, ultimately, what I believe the whole flat Earth thing is, I think flat Earth is a Psy-Op, actually.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. And that I was actually going to. So I'm just going to go. I'm just going to bring up my videos on Firefox here.
Okay, you go with that. We'll go into that. So, why do you think it's a psyop?
Flat Earth is a Psy-Op used to discredit any outside the box thinking or anything that's away from the norm or anything unorthodox, basically.
Okay, and but why do you think that out of the box thinking is discouraged?
So that, you know, no one wants people to talk about something that could be harmful to someone else. You know, there are some ideas that people don't like, so in order to shut them down, people say, you know, you're a flat earther.
Yeah, but well, why do it on a scientific, you know, talk about science in that sense?
Yeah, that's, you've got a point, yeah.
Because, and I'll put my cards on the table, right? You know, I'm a scientist, and guess what my job is?
Science.
My job is to disprove scientific theory. That's what I'm being paid.
Right, okay. Mm-hmm, right.
That is, in one sentence, that is what the scientific establishment pays me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that is to disprove a theory. So there's a guy who came out with, well, if our scientific theory is correct, then we expect this to happen. And it's my job, the project I'm working on, is to investigate that idea and to see if it holds. But the only one way that I can figure out if that idea holds is to try and disprove it.
Right.
So
Okay.
for the flat Earth, it is because if you want to try and, you know, create a psyop that challenges ideas, then science is not the place to do it, because disproving itself and challenging itself is a fundamental component of science. It is the fundamental principle of science.
Right, okay.
Because if none of us ever thought that, you know, if everyone said, okay, this is what the scientists say, therefore it is correct, and I'm not going to challenge it, we wouldn't even be rubbing sticks together to make fire, because that's how science works, right? We have an idea about the universe, and we try and probe the limits of that idea, and we figure out where that idea falls apart, and then we use that information to build a better model.
Right.
So the psyop idea is like, I'm not going to, well, emotionally, I would say, yeah, the psyop notion is incorrect. But let's suspend that, let's remove that disbelief and just say, okay, if we assume that psyops are a thing that truly happen in this day and age, then Flat Earth is not the place to go.
So you don't believe it's a psyop then?
I believe that there are organizations, maybe even government organizations, that are explicitly out, that intend to spread misinformation out there. In fact,
100%.
if we look at the anti-vax movement and how that was bolstered by Andrew Wakefield, right? His press releases after a publication, he released a publication which clearly states that to no extent should we say that there is a causal link between MMR and the MMR vaccine and autism. But on that same day that came out, he said, no, there is definitely a link with it. And he even filed a patent saying there is a definite link between the MMR vaccine and autism. And this is the thing, right? Because he was definitely employing what you would define as a psyop in that sense. He was trying to develop a public image, an idea in the public for the public to become against vaccines. So he himself could push his alternative, because you got to remember that at the same time, he was trying to build a company selling an alternative to the MMR vaccine. So I do believe that the psyops in that sense exist, but it is no more than really insidious advertising.
And I just want
if you get what I mean.
I just want to
I understand.
add a little bit to that. I think that even if it was a psyop, I think that there are people that genuinely believe that the Earth is flat, because I've heard a lot. Like I've met a flat earther in real life, and he genuinely believed the Earth is flat. I thought he was joking to start off with, but turns out that he wasn't. And then there's people that I often talk to who say, "Oh, my sister's a flat earther, my cousin's a flat earther," and it's like, well, I don't think that all these people are inserted as a psyop. So there are definitely people that believe the Earth is flat. The question, I think, for a lot of them is, do they believe that the Earth is flat because they genuinely believe it, or are they trying to make money? Like, I think that there are flat earthers that are just in it for money. So
yeah, there are people who are in it. There are people who genuinely believe it. There are people who are out there to make money out of it, and there are a large number of people who are somewhere in between. They do believe it, but they're also creating YouTube channels to make money out of it. And that's perfectly legit. Well, no, it's not, because it's based on misinformation. But at least they believe that it is correct, right?
Yeah.
And when we go back to PsyOps, spreading false information, actually the big thing that always makes me think about this is the water fluoridation. A lot of conspiracy theorists will say that fluoridation is there to make us dumb and, believe government propaganda and all that shit. But it always makes me think, is this maybe just and this is from an observation of a family member, who was vehemently against, water fluoridation, and she would only buy bottled water. Now, the funny thing is, in an area where there is no water fluoridation.
Okay.
but she would still buy bottled water. And so that makes me think, it's like, is the water fluoridation maybe just a little, if I were to put on a big tinfoil hat,
How do we know that they're not putting something in the water?
because you can test it.
How? With what?
You can test for fluoride. It's simple as that.
Fair enough.
You can.
I mean,
I can, I can take some of, I can take a drop of water from my tap and I can put it in my mass spectrometer, and I can see if there's any fluorine. And I can see if there's any kind of artificial levels of fluorine. That's perfectly safe, and that's a perfectly okay thing to do. Now, there's fluoride being put in a lot of it, in a lot of substances like toothpaste and everything. And I'm not going to deny that there are some genuine questions around fluoride and the safety of it. So I'm not going to dismiss some of the medical claims, outright, because I am not 100% sure about it. But my question is like, if we're talking about psyops, this is one thing where very, very quickly would say that this is where a psyop has been taking place, and this is the companies that sell bottled water. Because the only people that stand to benefit from spreading that message about, fluoride, it's evil when it's in a water supply.
Yeah, they can stand to benefit, you're right.
Precisely.
What I meant by psyop was that it's not people on the ground level, like a sister or a brother or whatever. It might be people making a YouTube channel spreading something to, make money from it. Or it could be something much darker or someone high level up,
So, so let me see if I've got this right. So your idea is, what if there's someone that's put as sort of seeding information in the on YouTube, and they might pay YouTube or something to promote this information so that you have some legitimate believers, because this is the theory that I've heard from some people, and then what happens is those people that are suspect to conspiracy theories latch onto this new conspiracy theory, and then they can now associate something like flat Earth with 9/11 with anti-vaxxers and that kind of stuff. Is that where you're getting at?
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that is a good point, because I have heard people talk about it and say, look, this could be what's happening. And I was actually... funny thing is, before I actually would have taken that idea seriously, I was going to make a video kind of saying that exact thing, but in a joking manner. So, it's definitely something that I'll entertain the idea of, but I think that the problem is that when it comes to these kind of things, you can't really control it, because flat Earth as it stands has gone way out of hand, because and it's not something that you can just simply say, the Earth is round. There are a lot of these people that still believe it, and they're going to still spread their conspiracy theories of 9/11, of flat Earth, and so I don't think that it's worth it in the end, because it's one of them things that reinforces other beliefs, it reinforces someone's belief in God, which reinforces their belief in flat Earth, which reinforces their belief in God. See what I'm getting at?
I can see where you're getting at, but I mean, I don't understand the problem with religion. Why do you think it's bad?
I'm not saying that they think religion is bad. I'm just saying that quite often you'll have a belief like flat Earth, which will reinforce their belief in other things.
Okay, right. Their belief in their religion, you mean? Right.
Yeah. Or actually, a better example would be Scotty Storm, who believes that because he believes in flat Earth, that reinforces his belief in vaccines being bad and 9/11, and that in turn would reinforce his belief in flat Earth.
Right, but I think the problem with flat Earth is that there's a disconnect between regular people and science, I think.
Oh yeah, there's definitely miscommunications.
Absolutely, and I can talk about this for hours. I'm actually writing a few scripts on this, and the biggest problem is boiling this down to the problem of science communication, because this is a problem that is massive. There is an absolute disconnect between how the scientific community interacts with the general public. And this is, we can try and quite easily say, well, it's because of this, it's because of that, and stuff like that. But it just completely ignores the complexity of the problem. Yes, there is absolute a big problem, but in science communication, how the scientific community interacts with the public. A lot of these are, I am afraid to say, financial interests. But these are not the financial interests of the scientists. These are not the financial interests of the general public. These are the financial interests of the vehicle that allows us to interact with the public, and these are the publishers. And there's a massive problem here. It's because there are two models. We as scientists, we have a choice to publish in a normal kind of journal, and that's where the public would have to pay to access the knowledge.
Can I just got to quickly interrupt here for a second, because someone is pointing out something that I've got on my screen saying B17 is arsenic. It's actually contains cyanide, not arsenic. Why am I promoting it? And I'm not promoting it. It's a video going against it. I just wanted to quickly point out that. Sorry. Continue.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Cool. So one of the because there's a database of knowledge. There's a database of scientific knowledge out there, and it's being guarded by the publishing companies. And there are two avenues in which you can access that knowledge. It's either you as as the member of the general public, you can access this, but you have to pay a hefty fee to access this knowledge. So you have to, sometimes it is up to about $40 or $50 to access a single article, which is about 4 pages of a PDF file. It is ridiculous. But then on the other hand, you have the scientists who would actually prefer to publish in something called an open access journal, where the public can access the information freely. But we have to pay a significant amount of money to actually publish that article. So we are paying the publisher to publish, for them to publish our content. And this is not a small amount of money. We're talking about several thousands of pounds or dollars, or whichever currency you work in. And this results in a lot of budgetary and and politics that we don't really want to be involved with. So there's a massive problem there, and
so it's middlemen and special interests then that are stopping information getting out there properly.
Yes, but and this is also where I find the flat Earth so problematic. Is that they consider, they treat the scientists as part of the establishment. And I would argue the opposite, because the most rebellious, most anti-establishment bunch of people I've met is in a physics department. We are constantly at loggerheads with the government and with the establishment, because our research holds the establishment to account, and we will be the ones that are saying, no, you're fucking wrong, because there's only one. Sorry?
You're not shills then. You're not shills trying to cover up the
No.
ice wall.
No, we're absolutely not shills. We, whenever scientists, whenever they hear a bit of government policy, our first response is just, and that's more the state of politics at the moment. Our first response is that's bullshit. Because politics is flawed. It doesn't work, especially in this day and age. And as scientists, we really struggle with a lot of the policy comes out. So I've got a bit of I've got several things I'm involved with. I'm a kind of physicist, but on the side also work in a bit of education research, and we look at a lot at education policy. And I know that this is a very difficult topic for the government, and they've got one particular tack around in the UK around what they envision the future to be for education, what types of schools and what structure should be in place. And we're going, no. I don't think that's right. You should pay a bit more attention to these things. The scientific establishment really does hold the proper elite to account. We are not shills. Absolutely not. And if there were a revolution, if there were an anti-establishment revolution, you will find scientists of your country at the front lines fighting in riots.
That sounds interesting, actually.
So what's this about B17 being a cure for cancer and whatnot?
It's one of the conspiracies that is put out by it's one of the conspiracies that's put out by alternative medicine proponents. They say B17 is a cure for cancer, but it actually contains it's actually amygdalin, right? And amygdalin in cells can be broken down into three components, which is benzaldehyde, glucose, I think, and hydrogen cyanide. So, it's...
Yeah, we need
What do you
Professor
mean
Stick
by-
on the channel for this.
I don't mean to interrupt, but what do you mean by alternative medicine? Do these people not trust regular medicine?
So essentially what they say things like chemotherapy is bad and stuff like that. They say that chemotherapy kills cells, doesn't actually kill cancer, and is put out by Big Pharma. And I've been sitting on a video idea for a while now, and that is a video called "In Defense of Big Pharma," where I actually
No. Never defend Big Pharma.
So a shill video then. Very nice.
not a shill video, but it's basically saying I don't like Big Pharma as they stand, but I don't want to but I don't want people using these things about Big Pharma, because Big Pharma does some shitty practices, but it's also in its interests to keep people well and alive.
Yeah.
So you don't want them using you don't want them using the excuse of Big Pharma to sell alternative medicine then?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, and that's the thing. It's because alternative medicine, there is a fine line between alternative medicine and traditional medicine. Because traditional medicine kind of took all the alternative medicine, tested it, and all the bits that worked became traditional medicine. And all the rest remained alternative medicine. Right, and when you're talking about Big Pharma, this is a very difficult topic because there's a lot of conspiracies around it. And don't get me wrong, the big pharmaceutical companies are bastards. They are horrible. You cannot trust them. But it's not for the reasons that the conspiracy theorists would tell you it is, because the conspiracy theorists will tell you that they're pushing drugs to make you sick, to buy more drugs and all of that. But the complexity of how big pharmaceutical companies are basically evil, it is far more complex and probably even more sinister than what the conspiracy theorists would tell you.
I generally see it as profit. The main thing that you can boil anything down to is profit, and Big Pharma wants profit. You've got examples where Big Pharma has basically hiked up the price of something like I think there was something that could help treat AIDS or HIV, and then there was this guy that went ahead and hiked the price up something like 1,000%. And that's one of the shitty things that Big Pharma can do. But when it comes...
Wasn't that Martin Shkreli or something?
I think it might be. I just want to... because the Casual Spaceman, I want to actually bring him on, because I think he might actually have a bit of a few interesting things to say, especially about psyops. And
yeah, great.
So I just want to...
whilst you're doing that,
I just want to let him know that all he has to do is go to the rules channel. It says Cyber Room. I will actually have to drag you into the stream debate, but yeah.
Yeah, so whilst you're doing that, I just want to make a recommendation to everyone listening. There is a book called Bad Pharma. It's written by an NHS doctor called Ben Goldacre. And this guy is a classic example of a true evidence-based scientist holding large companies and governments to account using evidence-based medicine. And he wrote a book called Bad Pharma, and actually that goes into how, it goes into the practices that big pharmaceutical companies employ to maximize their profits. And I would say that, read it and make up your own mind. In my opinion, what the conspiracy theorists say about Big Pharma is absolutely incorrect. But the reality, as in he exposes, is sneakier and probably even worse.
It's only £7 as well.
It is an exceptional read. It is very good. He's also got a book called Bad Science. It's definitely worth a read if you just want to look at historical examples of how bad science, how poorly carried out science has impacted society, and actually on certain levels goes into anti-vax movements and stuff like that. He is purely he is a true scientist. He is completely dispassionate. He has no interests in anything other than the welfare of his patients. And he is a great doctor. He's a great journalist, and you should read his stuff. And it gives you a really sober view of these conspiracies / psyops actually.
AB Science, you're cutting out there.
Sorry.
But yeah, I just want to I'm just trying to gather my thoughts, because
post the book in the chat.
Because Ben Goldacre, he also has a site I think called Bad Science.
Yes.
I did see something on Big Pharma there.
Yeah, I've just posted it to the chat.
Is the Casual Spaceman in the debate waiting lobby right now?
No, he's. I'm trying to say that he needs. He can't join the stream debate. He can probably join debate lobby, and debate waiting.
Set up a role first, right?
Yeah, debate waiting lobby. You have to set up a role to get into, but I'll make an exception for Casual Spaceman. He can join the debate lobby, and I'll drag him in from there. So that's a way to. But yeah, I think from what I can tell, Ben Goldacre does do good work.
Yeah, what he does is fantastic. So, the Truth Warrior, are there any particular scientific questions that you have around the globe model?
Are we only specifically meant to be talking about the globe model in this debate?
No, absolutely. Well, I would say no, but that's up to.
Well, what I'm actually gonna do is I'm probably gonna change the name of the debate once this goes up to something like, because we've actually had no flat earthers. Sure, you might be a globe skeptic, but you're not actually a flat earther joining this, because it's they tend to not be wanting to have discussion, at least
No.
At least,
of course not.
Unless it's on Nathan Oakley's channel. They always like to have discussion on Nathan Oakley's channel, but
Have you ever had one on your debates before, or no?
Yeah, I have had Right the Hand, and that was a dumpster fire.
Do you come across trolls, or is it like legit flat earthers?
We've had. I think Right the Hand is a legit flat earther. I've also had Pete Shea, who's actually in the chat, come on before, and I don't know if he's still on the server. He'll have to give himself a role so I can identify him. But here we go. Casual Spaceman. Ahoy hoy. Can you hear? I don't think Casual Spaceman, can you hear me? I've just dragged you in. Maybe he's muted. Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. No, Casual Spaceman, there's no reason why not.
I've been wondering, what's with the ahoy hoy?
Oh, that's... So, that is a reference to Graham Alexander Bell. So his initial thing was to... when you greet people on the telephone, say ahoy hoy, and
right, okay.
Apparently Casual Spaceman can hear us, but we can't hear him. It's also a reference to Montgomery Burns in The Simpsons. He says ahoy hoy when greeting people on the telephone, I think, and that.
He's a boomer, though, isn't he?
What?
He's a boomer.
Yeah, something like that. I think he might actually be born before that. Casual Spaceman, a good idea might be to restart Discord, and then I'll drag you in again. Yeah, that sometimes helps.
So what has the reaction been from Flat Earth channels to your channel? Have they spoken about you?
Some have. Like I've made the first sort of first kind of thing that the first kind of response that I got was from Sleeping Warrior, and he made a video saying that I don't understand what an independent variable is. And you can go watch that. And I will give him credit. He does use citations, but there's also citations saying that an independent variable doesn't have to be a cause. I think what he's saying is he's taking one scientific thing that says something in one way and applying it to all things, which is not always the best way to go about things. And I'll just drag Casual Spaceman in.
He's muted.
Yeah, he's muted and deafened, so he can't hear anything we have to say. So we can talk shit about... Oh, shit, he's unmuted, so we can't...
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep, loud and clear.
Oh, at last.
Yeah, we weren't... I promise you we weren't just about to talk shit about you when you couldn't hear.
Yeah, we weren't, not at all.
That's right, it's probably nothing I haven't heard before.
Yeah.
No,
But
it's just. I just wanted to add on what AB Science was talking about earlier on about conspiracy theories, really. And really, I personally think that the modern sort of conspiracy theories, if you think back to Watergate, if many of you sort of might know about it, in 1972, which was shortly after the last of the Apollo missions. And really, Watergate was a huge scandal in the States, and it really sort of started off this sort of anti-government, anti-sort of trust sort of feelings of government. I mean, there was still feelings there before that, but it kind of spiraled on from there because there was a lot of that straight after that. And it kind of shortly after the Watergate scandals, it was around about sort of 1974, 75, moon hoax conspiracies kind of started. That's what it sort of kind of all stemmed from. And then really the modern sort of flat earth theories sort of started sort of spinning off from that. So really, and there's lots and lots of conspiracy theories that we know of. And if you look at all of the conspiracy theories, they all really link back to mistrust in government. Like I said, as a spin-off from, since Watergate. And as we all know, I mean, governments lie to us all the time. They lie to us about all kinds of things all the time. We know this, from all sorts of different scales, from lots of different countries. So really, Flat Earth is just really a spin-off from mistrust in government. And NASA really was sort of, well, it is a government agency. So when the moon hoax theories sort of came along, it was NASA was really the sort of the target of that, if you see what I mean. So to be honest with you, I don't. To some extent, I don't blame a lot of people having a mistrust in anything government or government related, and I'm not surprised that eventually Flat Earth came along. When you exactly. So when you
you're absolutely right.
When you mix in with the religion side of things, yeah, go on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Our government cannot and should not be trusted. Because, and the same goes for large corporations, right? We cannot and should not trust them blindly, because that is how democracy works, right? We can't trust them blindly, because if we are not trusting our elected representatives, so if we are trusting them blindly, then we are not holding them to account.
Definitely.
And that's an important part. And
I don't blame Truth Worry and a lot of people really is asking questions about what's going on or other. I mean, do you mind me asking how old you are, Truth Worry?
I'm 19.
19. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you live in an era where you've got social media that's around. I mean, you touched about that earlier on. I mean, social media plays a huge part in communication. I mean, political groups have risen from social media and Facebook and Twitter and all the rest of it. So it plays a massive role in really sort of spreading conspiracy theories much wider and much quicker. So I don't blame anybody questioning what, and they absolutely should do. And I think AB Science just pretty much just said that just a moment ago. So really, and I'm not surprised that really when you mix in the religious fervor and religious beliefs, mix that in with mistrust of government, these are the kinds of conspiracy theories you're actually going to get. But unfortunately, linked into a part of society, science. I've always believed, because I've always been interested in the moon landings and the Apollo missions ever since I was a kid, since I was about 5 or 6 years old, 6 years of age. And I've always fervently believed. I'm 48 now, so I was born in 1970. So. So I've always sort of kind of believed that, and I think basically it's leaked in all this conspiracy is leaked into science, and really for me, science really is explains nature, explains everything around us.
Yeah.
And I say quite often as well that science doesn't really care what you think. Science just is science.
Yeah.
Nature just is nature.
Yeah, so for non-UK people, the Royal Society, it's pretty much taken as the scientific establishment, and the be-all and end-all of the scientific establishment. Its motto is nullius in verba, which is Latin for take nobody's word for it. It's the fundamental principle of science, and I would consider myself as a pretty anti-establishment person. I do not trust governments. I do not trust large organizations and everything. And it is a certain, it's that certain kind of rock and roll punk mindset that actually drove me into science. And it's because I worked in the IT sales industry. I worked in the corporate world for a while, and I did not like it because people above me in the food chain, I was expected to take their word for it. And one of the key things that made science so appealing for me was the fact that this is a line of work where I don't have to do that. I don't have to take what these people tell me as truth purely on the basis of the fact that they are higher up in the organization than me, that they are being paid more than me. I don't have to take their word for it. And now, as a scientist, I can go up to a person who makes 10 times the amount that I do, and I can say bullshit. I can call them out on their bullshit, and there are no repercussions for it because they present something and I don't believe it. I can just say, I do not believe what you're saying. I don't think that you are right, and I can present my case. And we can, on a truly anarchic, egalitarian nature, me as an early career researcher can have a conversation with someone who's been in the business for 40 years or so, is a highly regarded scientist, and we can have a conversation about what they just presented to me, and we can have a conversation as equals, and I can say to that person, I do not like what you're saying, I do not believe it, I think you are wrong, and we can have a conversation about it. If I did that in my previous job as an IT consultant or, IT sales in that commercial side, I would be fired. And this is where science is so powerful. It's because at the core of the scientific institution lies the fact that your status is irrelevant. Your opinion is irrelevant. What matters is the evidence.
To quote...
I just want to ask... Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, to quote someone who I disagree with and who uses a lot of feelings, but Ben Shapiro, he's got it right when he says facts do not care about your feelings.
I do have something to add. Casual Spaceman did say that the whole Watergate stuff did start government skepticism, but I would say it goes back to maybe the moon landings or the Kennedy assassination that really got the ball rolling.
Oh yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that's what the start of it really. I probably used the wrong words. I think, but what I'm saying is that Watergate, after Watergate, there was literally a domino effect of scandals, political scandals after that. That's what I'm suggesting. And really, and the connection I made that was because in around about sort of 75, 76 was when the the moon landing conspiracies kind of started to kick off.
Okay.
And it really, and it's because NASA was a government agency. It's really kind of, painted a great big red target on their backs, really. And of course, NASA then became as kind of like, people saw NASA as like the representation of science, which is not true at all. I don't know whether AB science believes on that or not. But I want to ask you, Truth Warrior. I mean, have you?
But the Watergate scandal, it definitely represented a watershed moment. Because pre-Watergate, there was a level of trust in governments which was quite high, and undeservedly so, right? And pre-Watergate, it was, there was some really, really, really shady shit going on, but people trusted their governments blindly.
Right, you were going to
actually just go back to.
What were you going to ask?
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I just want to make, first of all, what you mentioned about JFK as well. When it really started to come forward about what happened with Kennedy assassination, that actually sort of really started until the 70s anyway. Okay, so I just want to point that out. But what I wanted to ask you was that AB Science has been talking about. Have you ever heard of the peer review system?
Yeah.
Of that. That's what AB Science is actually talking about, and that's a really, really important part of the scientific community. It's essential. They question absolutely everything. Anybody comes up with an hypothesis or a theory, a review system, and everybody questions it.
Yeah. So especially
exposes it,
especially in the modern day in the modern nation peer review system. So. I'm a reviewer for a few journals, and people review my work. And the system is you publish. You're trying to get something published in your field of study. They don't send it off to any scientist. They send it off to scientists in your particular field of expertise. But science is so competitive that when you get a manuscript across your desk in your field, it's not even that. It would be nice to say that there's just other scientists checking that all the science holds up and blah de blah de blah de blah. But no, the current state of science is that of peer review is not that they are trying to check if everything holds up and everything is scientifically, sound.
Okay, right.
It is actually that the people who are reviewing it are actively trying to stop you from publishing. And I've been in a few situations where I've had publications going out where the reviewers have actively tried to stop me from publishing purely on the basis that it is competing with their work. So it is not just a buddy-buddy system where people are going, oh yeah, that's nice work, this all makes sense, bloody, 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 blah. It is a situation where your competitors, when you see something being published, it means that all your competitors have run out of arguments to stop you from publishing your work. Because when you publish, your competitors have gone, nah, shit, you know what, I cannot argue this anymore. That means that they have conceded the debate.
Yeah.
And I do find that it is a big problem. Like, a lot of people say that competition breeds innovation, but I disagree in some areas.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I disagree with that itself.
If anything, take away with that, Truth Warrior, is that don't ever think that that science doesn't challenge other scientific theories. They don't just make things up as they go along. And one thing you need to ask yourself is when you talk to any flat earthers or looking at flat earth theories on YouTube or wherever, is ask yourself, if flat earth really did exist, why isn't the scientific community in such a huge turmoil about it? Why isn't the scientific community fighting amongst each other? But the fact is that they're not, because
that's a good point.
The majority, in fact, I would say 99.9999% of them have zero scientific background.
Okay.
And certain people like Jay and Truth do, but they don't. So you've got to ask yourself, well, why is that?
Yeah, Jay and Truth has no scientific background.
Of course.
Speaking of someone with no scientific background, I'm just about to drag someone in who is a flat earther, so get ready.
Are you like an unironic flat earther?
I said Planarwalk. I said I would moderate this. I also said that I had a call to go on.
Yep.
So I'm going to go on to a call because this has been going on for quite a while.
Yeah.
You know, I did say that I did have to do this. I will check back in afterwards and I will rejoin.
Fair enough. I'm only going to be going for 50 more minutes.
Nice talking to you, Abby. Nice talking to you.
Yeah, likewise.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, seriously, man. Truth Warrior, I have to say, you kind of came in as a globe skeptic, and this has been a lovely conversation with you. You've joined Planarwalk's Discord. You'll be able to find me there. Get in touch if you have questions. It sounds like you are a true and honest skeptic, which is a good thing, and I really respect that. So do find me, add me as a friend. If you have any questions, get in touch with me, and we'll talk about it. And we can figure some stuff out. Have a proper discussion about it.
Never stop questioning.
That sounds brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's been great chatting with you. This is something I've never said to any flat earther or globe skeptic or whatever, right? It's been great. So thank you for actually coming on, having a good chat.
Some interesting questions.
Yeah, it's been great. So we'll catch you soon. I've just got to go onto a conference call right now. I may be back shortly. I don't know how it's going to go. So I'll see you in a bit.
Have fun.
The best.
All right. Good night, all.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Why didn't you hang around for some interesting questions? It's a shame.
Because he's got other things to do, really, that's all.
So, what are you bringing to us today? I believe you are known as Pete Shea mostly.
Yeah, Je suis Dodo here. Well, I should change that to Je suis Dodo no more. But I was listening to a few things. Who was doing the main speaking about Watergate and conspiracies, the rise of conspiracies post-Watergate?
That was Casual Spaceman.
Right. Okay. So you have the truth about Watergate then, in spite of all of the conspiracy mix bag of possibilities that comes along with the story itself. What's the actual truth? That's important that we know it, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's the whole lot of stuff that was revealed, wasn't there? I mean, I don't know the all the ins and outs of Watergate, but I know the general idea what actually happened. I wasn't really speaking about the specifics of it. But what's your point?
My point is, just like if you ask 10 people their point of view on 9/11, after especially going down the conspiracy pathway, you'll get 9 or 10 different answers, I'm absolutely sure. So it's the same with Watergate. And what the actual truth of it matters a lot. Because maybe you were meant to find out about this break-in. Maybe it was all pre-scripted. So it's just another
Maybe it was.
within the pathway.
Hey,
Maybe it was, but can you agree or could you not agree that governments do lie to us?
Well, I mean, absolutely, of course.
Well, yes
yeah,
or no?
everything is a lie.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, everything. What do you mean? To be more specific, what specifically is a lie when you say everything?
Well, everything is a lie. You name it. So it'd be easier. Yeah.
You can't come into a debate channel and just say everything's a lie. I mean, my name's Casual Space Mine. Am I lying? So Lou, you need to be a little bit more specific.
I can expand upon that, but generally I can say that. And if you ask me about a particular area of conspiracy, I'll tell you that the official story is a lie.
Okay. Well,
go deeper than that.
Okay. I tell you what. We're talking about flat Earth at the moment. So, I mean, do you believe that the Earth is flat?
Well, I know the Earth is flat.
No, the Earth is flat. Okay, fine. Well, then present what your evidence is, or what you believe that proves that the Earth is flat.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get back to square one in the argument, we've never spoken before, I don't think. So what I always reduce everything down to is the movement or non-movement of the Earth beneath our feet. You see, because if we decide from the start that the Earth is moving, we'll end up in a different place than if we decide that the Earth is not moving. And we will all admit that we have never, as human beings, experienced Earth to move beneath our feet. Right, we can experience movement in all manners and forms, but we can never say that we've experienced the Earth to move en masse beneath our feet. So if we start off trying to prove that instead of assuming that, then we will end up in a completely different place. And needs must then, if you decide that the Earth beneath your feet is not moving, the ball will not enter reckoning because of our universal experience of water at similar temperatures and pressures, which is flat when still. So
we don't feel the motion of the Earth because the speed of the Earth is constant.
Until you do that, you can't expound upon theories.
Pete, I have a question to ask you, and this is just a baseline question that I ask everyone. What is the shape of water?
Water is formless.
Yeah, but if we can describe
formless.
If we can describe a way to describe whatever shape the water is going to take, how would we describe that in the best way?
Formless, because we can all appreciate what that means fundamentally, but you will say that it's not formless. It will adhere to the external surface of a sphere and form a curve. So yeah, what's your best answer as to what water is?
Well, what I'm trying to get at is there is even if something is formless, and this actually applies to all liquids. So you might say that mercury is formless, for example, but even if something is formless, it still conforms to some kind of shape. It just that shape can just vary. So we can describe that shape, and how would you describe that shape? That's what I'm asking.
Level when still the Earth that we live on, in terms of the water in the ocean or earth-wide, the biggest variation between level is the biggest variation in high and low tide in coastal areas, and that turns out to be something like 30 meters or 100 feet. So outside of any raging storms or swells, 100 feet is the biggest variation from absolute horizontal on the oceans of the Earth.
So
you mentioned tides there.
Yeah,
I've got a question if you don't mind.
So I was going to...
What do you...
100 feet variation earthwide.
So I just want to bring up that in my water bottle here, I have water, right? And that water is not entirely flat, right? Because it's moving around. But also, you've also got the shape of it underneath, which is completely different to the shape on top. So the water is always flat, or water is always level, only describes one part of the water. It doesn't describe the whole lot of water. So do you have any way to expand on that, to describe?
you're talking about a very confined area here. When you expand on that and talk about a bucket or a swimming pool or a lake, then you don't have this curvature to it. It's a
No,
flat surface.
but
Well,
what-
we're
Again,
missing one major component here, though, aren't we? Really, it's gravity. But I mean, this is the whole point of this
It comes later.
this discussion. Sorry.
Your gravity comes later. Don't you understand?
I want to try and see if Peach can actually answer the question. So, when it comes to it, there is a simple way to describe the shape of water. Can you do you know what that might be?
Yeah, I just said it. Level when still.
Okay, but that
So
only
any collection of water you have level when still.
but that only describes one part of the water. That only describes the surface of the water. Do you want me to give you the answer?
Well,
The answer anyway.
oh, far away.
Okay, so the answer is water conforms to the forces that are acting upon it.
Go.
So, do you disagree with that?
Conforms. What exactly do you mean by conforms?
So, if we take a force like gravity, which can affect water, and we
Oh, no, hang on. Let me stop you there. You're already introducing these different concepts, right? When we're trying to get back to basics. So if you could leave out gravity for the minute and try and explain things in terms of water itself without invoking other things.
So,
what's different concept about gravity? I don't get that. I don't get that statement.
That's a later concept. You see, we're trying to decide
later to what though?
Related to
What
the
do you mean
spherical
later?
Earth. You're
I
living
mean,
on a spherical Earth. You've decided, first of all, that the Earth is moving, and then you've decided that the Earth is a sphere. Then you have decided that gravity is a thing because that's how water can be held upside down.
We haven't decided that. We can prove that that's the case. It's not a decision.
What the debate is all about, bud. This is why flat Earth is stronger than ever.
Right, I
So
have a question
funny
for you, if
about
you
that.
don't mind. What shape do you believe?
What's
Do you believe
funny
in other
about that?
planets?
Are we not reasonable men or something?
Do you believe in other planets like Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and so on?
Listen, this is what I'm talking about. Do you understand? We're trying to start off at the baseline here. And we're talking about water and its properties, and you're bringing in gravity, these differing and disputed concepts as well. Now, I am a flat earther, but I have a version of gravity.
You're disputing.
Gravity is
You're
real.
disputing
Gravity is a
gravity.
pushing
We're
force.
not disputing gravity. You're disputing gravity.
Oh,
It's
no,
just that
I'm-
this.
see,
See,
don't-
this.
yeah.
No. You see, because this is where flat earthers fall over. You see, as soon as it comes to anything mentioned about gravity, they just dismiss it, or they don't want to go to it.
Oh,
So, what point are we
Ask
going
me
to
what I
discuss
think,
gravity?
man. He is.
Do you think? Okay, what is gravity then?
Gravity is
Answer
a pushing force from above, right? And it's associated with the reactionary force to the actionary force that's holding back the waters beyond. So instead of the infinities of space, we have waters beyond. Astronaut is star in nautical is water, right? We all live in a yellow submarine underwater, the seas of tranquility, where we're told there is waters beyond.
okay, but do you
Polar
have
opposite as well to the
beyond
vacuum of space.
any evidence
So-
for these claims?
Plenty of evidence.
Okay, present it, please.
Again, we're jumping on to bigger areas. I'd rather deal with the basic issue, which is Earth's movement. And as I've already said, if you
So you
disagree
can't
with
present your
if you
evidence.
disagree with my opening statement, right, we wouldn't have a completely diverging philosophy
You
and
can't get any
worldview.
more simple and basic than gravity.
Yeah.
I mean, what
You
is there
don't-
difficult to
You
understand
can't tell
about
me
it?
what
Why don't you want to
gravity is.
understand
I
it?
can tell you what I think gravity is. You can't tell me what you think gravity is.
We can. Do you want me to
Off you
describe?
go. So just you, bud. Just you tell me what gravity is.
Okay, so gravity is the curvature in space-time due to mass. Large amounts of mass cause cause space-time to curve, which means that objects will move towards larger objects or objects with larger amounts of mass due to this.
Now
and we can
For
describe
the audience, you just describe exactly what space-time is, and what do you mean when space-time curves? What can you just?
Space-time is a space-time is a space-time is a sort of field. So there's like electromagnetic field. Space-time is also a kind of field that responds to mass.
Ether, maybe an ether field.
I mean,
Ether field, no.
yeah, it's not really an ether field because ether.
Electromagnetic field, an ether field. Yeah.
Ether field was you'd expect things like ether wind, which we didn't measure, so we discarded that. We discarded that idea.
So you're saying that space-time isn't a concept; it's a physical or an actual thing, an aspect of reality.
Yes.
Okay. Sure about that, bud?
Well, okay. Let me ask you a question. Do you understand what a pressure? Do you understand what a pressure gradient is?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Can you tell me what a pressure? Explain what.
I know what's causing it as well.
It's a pressure gradient.
Pressure gradient. Have a gradiated pressure reading within a fluid or a gas within a container, which is pressurized itself. And it's very easy to achieve as well. If you heat one side of a gas cylinder as opposed to the other side, you will get a pressure gradient inside.
Okay, that leads me on to my next question then. When you believe in a flat Earth, you also believe there's a dome over that flat Earth.
Well, you can ask. Don't be telling me what I believe, man, and ask me.
No, I'm asking you. I'm just asking you a question. I'm only asking you a question. It's just a question. I'm not saying that you should believe that. I'm asking you, is that what you believe?
Do you believe? Yeah, well, that's fair enough. You can ask me. You believe, as a flat earther, you believe, right? That's what you said.
Oh, I just said do. No, I asked you as a question.
No, he simply asked.
You believe?
Well, if you go back,
you believe there's Let me simplify it. Do you believe that there is a dome over the flat Earth?
That's fine, thank you. That's a much more polite way of putting it. Now, a dome as such, no, an electromagnetic barrier. That's what I think is going on.
Can
you
I
have an
ask,
electromagnetic barrier holding back the waters beyond.
Can I ask you something? Do you understand electromagnetism?
Does anybody? I mean, I can't say I understand it, but I have a grasp on what's going on, I think, in my own brain.
You don't understand it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm also going to invite someone, another flat earther on who just joined the Discord, Sleeping Warrior, so prepare. Because I think he has something to say.
No. I'm going. I'm not sticking around for that one.
Okay.
Sorry, no, I've no patience for that guy at all. Sorry.
All right.
No. I'm going to hang out. Listen, in all seriousness, no, it's been nice talking to you. Honestly, I hope you find your.
Yeah. Hello, Riley.
Easy, bud.
Hey.
How's it going?
I just heard somebody mention pressure gradient in a container, didn't they?
Yeah, we're talking a bit about gravity and pressure gradients and all that kind of stuff. So
what's gravity?
So the way that I describe gravity is the curvature in space-time, which causes objects to move towards greater amounts of mass.
Causes. How are we going to demonstrate that cause?
Well, it's very hard to pinpoint exact ways to cause, but we can make measurements that infer that what we are observing is what we. So, for example, the Einstein's theory of relativity predicts that we'll expect time dilation when we in different amounts of gravity.
Okay. Time dilation works. How are we going to demonstrate time dilation?
So, if if you're on the ground, you'd have clocks would run at a different speed to if you are further away from the ground, like in the ISS.
Great. Can we demonstrate that?
Well, we can demonstrate it, but not as an average person, because
Not as an average Joe. Oh, lucky.
But that's because an average person doesn't have the amount of money that would be required to perform these kinds of things.
Yeah. So, okay. So
Then you're sold something that you can't understand nor relate to, and you accept it as gospel truth. Isn't that cool? But I would ask you a question. You're definitely wrong when it comes to describing space-time as a dimension, like the other three dimensions are, because it's a concept. But I would go further and ask you to define space and then define time. And it's a good question for everybody, as flat earthers as well. What do we mean by time? It's a measurement of something, right? But exactly of what?
Well,
Sleepy Warrior, do you believe in space?
Define space.
Do you believe in outer space? I mean, as in of Mars or other planets in our solar system.
Do you mean 10 to the minus 17 tall with Earth in the middle of it with a gas pressure? No.
You don't believe in outer space?
Not that I don't believe in it. I just accept that you guys can't prove your assertion. So if you can prove it, then I'd be.
Isn't the burden of proof on you?
What do you mean? I haven't made a claim.
I mean, the claim that almost everyone accepts is that outer space exists, and you say it doesn't.
No.
Why?
I haven't made a claim. The claim is, your question was, do I accept that outer space exists? And I said it can't be demonstrated to be true. And then you said, isn't the burden of proof on me? And I'm like, what, to ask for evidence? I think not.
Fuck's sake.
You can simply use a telescope.
Chilling out on a Friday night.
You can just look using a telescope.
Right, and what does a telescope do?
It shows the objects that can't be seen with the human eye.
Right, but I can also get a telescope and I can check out a chick at the top of a mountain a couple of miles away, and I can establish that chick's got dark hair and big boobs, right? But when I go up to that chick real world and I have a good look at that chick, I realise it's actually a bloke. So how
You can have trannies everywhere, bud. I keep telling you.
Shut up, Pete. It wasn't a key prompt for you.
You're from Liverpool.
You had to bring it up, didn't you? Go on.
It was an example of spectroscopy not proving cause and
Now
effect.
ramshackle vaginas are in my mind.
Right, Pete, shut up. It wasn't a segue for you.
Well,
It's your fault, man. I can't help my brain.
Well, what
I mean, picturing you have a picture of a tranny at the top of a hill. What the fuck are you doing up there at the top of the hill anyway?
Jesus Christ.
Well, you're not up there. You're looking at it through a
That's what I'm
telescope
saying.
and you're making observations based on what you believe is a chick at the top of the hill. But when you get
Right,
there,
exactly. You get a
realise
big
it's
hard
not
on or
actually a chick.
something, and you big letdown when you find out it's a bloke with fake boobs.
So you're saying
Pete,
that we're
shut
seeing
up.
something else then? Something
Pete, shut up, it wasn't
something that's different.
But how is it
Disappointing as a
different? You're
male.
relying on observations to prove cause and effect relationships, right? Observations is
Yes.
step one of scientific method, but there's a few other steps that follow it that require to be completed for you to prove something. But observations alone doesn't do it. It's the first step and only the first step.
But what I
I
want
mean,
to
there's been probes sent out there as well, so you can just look up the photos they've sent back.
Say that
Relate
again.
to the sun. This is what we got to think about. And Anthony, I mean, this is still a question. If you have discarded the idea of outer space, you have to fill it in terms of your own picture with something, right? Otherwise, you're left with where in no man's land.
Not really.
So
I
I
am
talk
all
about
right
water's
not
gone.
realising
Can you prove
that
it to
I'm
any
not gonna
scientific
know.
degree? I don't think so, but we can
No,
reason
he's
our
right.
way.
Where are we then? Like,
I
where is the
realise,
Earth?
Pete,
Where
In a
are we?
bubble. We live in a bubble.
Pete, listen. I realise
Fuck.
that if I am the little amoeba that's in the petri dish underneath the microscope, I don't need to understand who's controlling the microscope and why to understand that I'm just the amoeba on the petri dish. I'm not saying that I am. I'm just saying that the bigger picture, I'm all right not knowing or realising or understanding it because I'm just the amoeba at the bottom of the petri dish. I get it, but I don't have to work
You
out
say
the
you
whole
are. Maybe
scenario.
we're all just as big as we are small, right?
Maybe, but
That's
anyway,
right.
let's get back down to some science, right? So, what are we going to try and establish about outer space?
So I'd like to
Right, where are we? No, go ahead.
So I'd like to say, so you can take celestial objects like the planets and work out where they're supposed to be based on the heliocentric model. if you take that and you, so you go, okay, so Mars is supposed to be at this place in this time, and you check and see that it's at that place at that time, that validates the heliocentric model.
So when you say celestial objects, how are we going to prove that they are actually objects before we do any calculations or observations? Objects are tangible, right? Physical objects that we can physically touch, tangible objects that have existence. How do we determine that the things that we call the planets are actually tangible, physical objects?
Because they're very similar to Earth.
Well, they exhibit properties that a tangible physical object would. So, for example, Jupiter has moons, which cast a shadow on Jupiter, like how you'd expect the moon to cast a shadow on the Earth, or how you'd expect a physical object to cast a shadow.
Which moons cast a shadow onto Jupiter that we can observe and prove that it's the shadow of the moon in question that we're observing? Come on, where's the evidence for this?
Give me a few seconds.
Europa, Ganymede, Io, Callisto.
And you're also bringing preconceived ideas into your reckoning when... Yeah.
Can I see some evidence for Io casting a shadow on Jupiter, please?
And let me just say, you're bringing preconceived ideas into this space inquiry, right? You're talking about how we should expect a moon to look based on our own moon, which you've already assumed is a rock in space 250,000 miles away. Now, if it is not, don't you?
By the way, who was the weasel that left as I joined?
Casual Spaceman, he was in here before you joined.
Yeah, he's left. Did he give was it because of me or for some other reason?
I think it might have been because of you, I'm not sure.
Spaceman,
maybe.
Down. So he'll put up with Pete
Riley,
Shane, he can't put up with me.
I let that go. Chris Burry, he's been on Nathan Oakley's a few times. Red's rhetoric, bud. Red's rhetoric.
Okay, so
no actors on Platter.
So I'm bringing
rhetoric.
up
Chris Burry is Red's rhetoric, same guy.
Yeah. So I'm bringing up a page on. There we go. It's coming up on stream now, and that is the shadows of Jupiter's moons.
Where can I see this?
Is it the triple shadow
okay,
one?
Yeah, triple shadow transit not to miss. Okay.
Yeah. So, and these are predictions that the heliocentric model make, and we can make these predictions, and these predictions actually happen. So that leads credence.
They look like bats, to quote Brenda. How are you going to prove that these are shadows? I mean, how are you going to prove that these are shadows relating to Jupiter and not created?
Well, it looks like what if you cast a shadow on another object, if you use one object to cast a shadow on another object, it looks like that kind of thing that you're getting there. So unless another explanation is presented for this, then you can't really.
Well, I noticed that. I mean, I'm trying to look at this on my screen, and it's a little bit too small for me. But it looks like, is it Io and then Io shadow? They look the same size as each other. Is that right?
Yeah, they look roughly the same size.
Right. So when it comes to the moon casting a shadow on the Earth in the solar eclipse, why do they tell us that there's an umbra and a penumbra, and the umbra and the penumbra are significantly smaller than the shadow that you're presenting for Io shadow? Shouldn't that also be significantly smaller?
Now you do bring up a good point, but it's because of distance. The further you get, the more the rays are actually going to be parallel.
Come on, they're practically parallel at all distances away from Mercury.
But there is still some because I'm just trying to work out a good way to explain it. There's still some non-par. Is there a word for this? There's the best way to describe it is
called nonsense.
Bullshit.
No, because there's still some sort of non-parallelity. If I know that's not very scientific.
Parallel rays, yeah.
But
Would you agree with me, Pete, that if the Earth's shadow, the Moon's shadow on the Earth is significantly smaller, according to the idea that the Sun's massive, wouldn't you expect it to be the same over that? I mean, the distance from the Sun to the Earth is 93 million miles, right? And it's 150 million miles to Jupiter. What difference in
Planarwalk.
angle
We're
does
not
that
going to get the
make?
checks from NASA if you keep continuing. Come on, they're not going to stop paying us.
Pete,
Come
would
on.
you agree with me? The same principle applies.
Absolutely, if they say how these celestial shadows work, so none of it's
Yeah.
consistent, and what are you going to do but just rule all of it out, right, and start from scratch?
Hey,
No
Planarwalk,
ball.
would you agree that you could replicate the face of Jupiter the way we see it with just a little bit of artistry?
You probably could, but the difference there is that you can actually verify that this is what Jupiter looks like. At least I mean, it could be here that we've got certain things. Well, NASA can make it look a lot more higher quality, but you can at least verify that it's the rough sort of what it should look like with a camera or something like that.
How would you verify that? What do you, when you say verify, what do you mean?
So you could take a photo. You could take a photo through a telescope, right? And then there's a few techniques that you can do. I can't remember exactly how it was, but you can get a really good quality photo, and independent astrophotographers do this all the time.
How does that verify?
Because it's the same. You get the same kind of colors. You get the same. You get the same patterns and all that kind of stuff.
All right. So what you're saying is it's repetition, therefore it's true. Okay, I get that. Pete, are you familiar with that article where the bloke's making Jupiter? He's literally painting the spots onto Jupiter and the lines and stuff. Are you familiar with that article? I'm trying to find it and I can't find it.
Oh, can't say I am now.
But I want to get back to a earlier point because I just searched up the distance of the Sun to Jupiter, and the distance is 778.5 million kilometers.
Yeah, 360 miles, right? 360 million miles, right?
I'll get it in miles.
I think it's 350 million.
483 million miles.
Okay, well, whatever. So basically, what you're saying is that there is a difference in parallel sunlight from that distance to 93 million miles, right?
Definitely.
Bullshit. Do you want to do the sums and work out that angular distance, that angular difference?
Yeah, just trying to work out what.
I'll do it.
Okay. But there'll definitely be a difference, even if it's something like.
It's going to be negligible, and the same principle will still apply. Right. So
Let me make an important point. Let me make an important point here. They've blinded us with huge distances and vast eras of time, right? So when you talk about 360 million miles, we can all relate to let's say we've all taken a trip maybe halfway around the world, a 24-hour, 12-hour trip or something. This is thousands of miles covered in that distance. These are the distances we can relate to. So when you talk about 360 million miles, how the fuck can you relate to it in any sense whatsoever? And when we get to reality, we find that it's the opposite to what we're told is actually true. And all these things, as we perceive them, are very much nearer indeed. So
he's right.
What do you mean?
How would you demonstrate that Jupiter or even the Sun is 93 million miles when we can't measure these things? We can't even prove that these things are physical, tangible objects, let alone measure the distances to them. I mean, let's just assume that they are physical, tangible objects that we can touch and land rockets on and stuff. How are we going to demonstrate or prove the distance to the Sun, for example, when we only know the angles? You can get 2 or 3 angles. Like the right angle for the Sun to Venus, for example, and then the calculated or measured angle from us to the Sun. That gives you 2 of the angles, and then you can basically work out the internal angles, but you need a distance to be able to work out the distance to Venus or to the Sun. Where do you get the distance from?
From what I recall, there's things to do with spectroscopy, which can tell us how far the light has traveled from its source, and those kinds of things. Like,
Yeah, but do you understand what I'm saying? Nothing in your life has ever prepared you to be able to appreciate these type of distances when you're talking about 360 million miles, 93 million miles. We cannot relate to it in any sense, and I think that's for a good reason as well, because these distances don't exist.
Yeah, and even if even if these distances did exist, you've still got to demonstrate that the thing you're looking at is actually real. How are you going to demonstrate reality to what we see? The reality is, it appears that the lights in the sky that we call planets are basically, I will assert that they are proof of creation of some kind, not necessarily by God, but they are deliberately there to piss science off because they can't prove any of this shit, but we see it. So it's like, you could basically write your own story, put a couple of blokes in white gowns and say, yeah, this is definitely true because we've calculated it using blah, blah, blah. And then people like you will accept it because you're pro-science. And I'll say, well, hang on a minute, how do you even know that the thing up there is physical to be able to reference an actual triangulation point too? And then you guys will say, well, Riley can't triangle. And I'll say, you can't prove that that thing's up there is really a planet that you can land a rocket on. Come on.
Well, we can, as I said, the globe model does provide, or the heliocentric model, should I say, because that's a more accurate term when talking about the planets, but that does provide predictions, and we can, you can go ahead and do the calculations yourself if you know the calculations, and then...
yeah, but the thing is, we can predict that the hour hand on a clock will always come round every hour. We can predict the minute hand on a clock will always come round every minute. It'll always come round, the hour hand will come round every 12, the minute hand will always come round every hour. The thing is, we know that predictions don't prove like tangibility, physicality. They don't prove anything other than frequency. I'll give you that you can calculate the frequency and you can make predictions based on that frequency and you can model it out as a reoccurring event. But that doesn't prove anything. It just means that it's modeled. What we want to know is
the timekeeper.
But when it comes to the
timekeeper, you think?
But when it comes to
timekeeping.
When it comes to the planets, there's, for centuries, people were trying to figure out what is the pattern to the planets, and there was a lot of,
and Kepler gave us that. Kepler gave us his third law. Kepler's third law on interplanetary motion gave us the ratio. We know the process. We know the frequency. We know what will happen when, and we know how it happens because we know it's to do with frequency. Repetition, frequency. That doesn't prove that these things are things that we can land rockets on or gas giants that will swallow us up. Nobody knows. I mean, look at George Musa, for example. He did his thesis on the convection currents of Venus. How the fuck did he know anything about Venus when we don't even know what's below 8 miles on our own Earth? And he's done his thesis on convection currents of Venus.
Well,
why don't we know what's below our Earth?
Because the deepest we've ever dug is 8 miles, and beyond that it's spectroscopy in the form of seismology. Seismology is not even a science. There's no manipulation of any independent variable. It's simply an observation using technology, and then it's subject to interpretation. But from that interpretation, we can interpret that we live on a sphere. But nobody can demonstrate that we live on a sphere. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be talking about it.
So where do you think we are then?
I have no idea.
Like, where is the Earth? You don't know.
I don't know. Ultimately, that question reduces back to what came first, the chicken or the egg. If you take it to its, like, if you push it further and further back, ultimately, you have to answer, well, the question is, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And it doesn't matter how you answer it, the answer has to be, ultimately, something created it, because it's an infinite regress fallacy, right? It continues. The chicken can't have the egg, so it must be the chicken, but the chicken needs to be born. So it's an infinite regress fallacy. You can't have that. It makes no logical sense whatsoever. So it has to have been created at some point.
But the problem with having a creator is the question of who created the creator. And if you say the creator wasn't created,
but then you haven't got a creator, have you? But if the creator was created, he's not the creator.
And if you say that there's a creator and that he wasn't created, that leads to another fallacy called the special pleading fallacy.
Are you religious, by the way, Stephen Walker?
No, not at all. I don't push it. I don't buy into anything that's religion. I hate the religion. If you're on the red team or the blue team, keep it away from me. I'm not interested. What I realise is the chicken and the egg argument. That chicken has to have been created, probably in the form of an egg, but it can't come from nowhere. So ultimately, it has. I mean, look at it this way: if you guys accept that DNA exists, right, and I'm assuming that you do, so you don't have to confirm it. It's not a trick. I'm assuming that you guys accept that DNA exists.
Yep.
The amount of information that's encoded into the DNA is that huge that it's terabytes and petabytes and crazy amounts of DNA on just one strand of DNA. But the problem is, how did that information get into the condition that is formed? Like, for example, you don't get a sandcastle unless you build it. Like, sand will come in with the sea, and it'll never, ever, ever form a sandcastle unless someone makes it. The code for DNA cannot exist unless somebody puts it into an order, because the chances of it all randomly sneezing into existence and put into the right order to result in humans, it's basically zero. Yeah, I mean, it's infinitely small, and it possibly could exist, but it's basically zero.
Riley.
You're never going to get a sandcastle forming as the result of an incoming tide. Something has to have programmed that. Now, I don't subscribe to a religion. I'm not religious at all. I don't even like the idea of religion. It causes more trouble than anything else.
Agreed.
But the fact that DNA exists and has to have been programmed somehow tells you that it has to have been created by something. Maybe God, maybe not God, but it has to have been created. It can't explode from a cosmic sneeze.
But Riley, I just want to what's my train of thought now? I just
Stoned as well, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember now. But would you agree that a creator is likely more complex than the thing that it is creating?
Would I agree that the creator is more complex than the thing that it's creating?
Oh,
yeah,
that's
of
a
course.
fallacy.
I would generally agree
That's a
with
contradiction. That's a contradiction in
that. No, I
terms.
generally
That can't
agree
happen.
with that.
Because then you run it. Because with that, you run into the problem of, you've got something so complex that it has to be created, so you need something even more complex to create that complexity. And to say that thing that's more complex wasn't created, that again is a special pleading fallacy.
Are you not quantifying the complexity of the creator by assuming that? Right, at the end of the day, right? Let's just say that you're right. I do assume that the creator can't create something more complex than himself. But where do you rank the creator in terms of complexity if he's able to create us? I mean, look at the human body. It's got a heart, it's got lungs, it's got liver, it's got kidneys, it's got skin. They're all organs that magically, simultaneously form at the moment of inception. All right, 9 months later, but the sperm meets the egg, and because of little explosions on the sperm, that moment of inception, that does something that we can't recreate. Now, why it does it is biological, and you can come up with explanations or whatever, but the point is, something happens then, and 18 years later, you've got a fully fledged adult, and we cannot create that. There's too much that goes into it. They've been trying to do stuff like that for years and years. Frankenstein. We can't create life the way that life is.
And you can't create sperm, Anthony. I'm sorry to hear that, bud. I can knock it out whenever I want.
We can't get a load of chemicals, mix them together, and create a sperm. No.
But you can in my own body, man.
Yeah, we can't create it though. Like, we can do it, us, me and you. But
I know.
Can't do it.
But getting to the
and what do we? And actually, just an important point. What do we spend the most of our lives doing as males? Dying to get rid of it, right? And dying to spit it on the ground. Well, what if you found out it was the most magical imbued fluid in existence? And of course,
I think you might have misunderstood my point. I wasn't saying that humans are infertile. I was saying that we can't recreate sperm.
I know what you mean, man. But we still are creators in that sense. We are.
Yeah, I agree. We are creators. Yeah. I agree.
I do want to bring up a point though, because we've only been trying for how long to create creatures within a lab. We haven't had the millions and millions of years that the Earth has had to.
So why would you expect a flat Earth model when we've had 2 years at it?
You've actually had a lot more than 2 years to come up with.
Sorry, go on, carry on.
Because sure, you may have been researching. A lot of people may have been only found out about flat Earth for a couple of years ago, but hasn't really been any progress made on flat Earth, despite the amount of people that
Aristarchus.
Well,
who cares about the progress on flat Earth? We have no money. We have no people. The best we have is a channel that'll get porn bombed every now and again. I don't know what your expectations are.
Well, Mad Mike Hughes is he's taking it upon himself to build a rocket to try and go and to try and shoot himself up into space. You know,
He's already done it. Well, maybe not into space, but
He did not do it.
Right.
He got a couple of 100 feet into the sky.
I know. But my question still remains: we've like flat Earth as a concept has only really kicked in top gear in the last 2 years or so. Okay, it's always existed. At the end of the day, who's had all the financial resources? The state. The state give it out to science that supports the assertion that we live on a sphere and we're orbiting the sun. But nobody ever tells people that scientific method cannot prove curve, axial rotation, gravity. But everyone believes that it's true because everybody gets told the same story when we get indoctrinated at birth, like in schools from birth.
except that there's a lot of evidence for the Earth being a sphere. There's
Okay.
there's
But
evidence.
what about proof? What about proof? Is there any proof that we're on a sphere?
Well, evidence is what we use. You can't prove something definitively, and that's getting into the whole argument of the philosophy behind science.
Not philosophy behind science. It's the empiricy of science that proves things. We do prove things in science. It's false to say that science doesn't prove things. It disproves things. That's false.
Okay,
Science proves cause.
What has been proved by science?
Well, that the temperature of water will boil at a certain temperature. Gee, I wonder what that temp might be.
Let's actually find out what temperature does water boil at, let's say, 1 kilometer height, because
Yeah, we have a phase diagram for a lot of the Constitution elements. Look up the phase diagram of anything, and you can see where we know what these phase diagrams do with relative to the things that you're testing.
so at 2,400 meters in elevation, water boils at 92 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, and do you know why that is?
It's because of the. It says here it's because of. It doesn't actually say it's.
It's to do with the pressure, and
Yeah.
it's to do with the heat. So there's a correlation between the heat and the pressure. That's why we have the phase diagrams, and that's why we can tell all the things about what certain elements will do.
It's
The primary cause of of water boiling at 100 degrees is not only to do with temperature; it correlates with pressure. But we can test that with science. That's what science does. It proves a cause and effect relationship.
No, it proves
If it can't prove cause.
It proves a correlation, or it shows a correlation.
Sure. But
And
we're trying to establish whether or not we've got, say, for example, axial rotation. Right? That's not a cause and effect relationship, but everybody claims in science that we can prove that the Earth's turning. Really?
we can show evidence that it turns.
Really? What evidence have you got that the Earth turns?
Well, we've got things like, let's take Foucault's pendulum, for example.
Right, so you're going to show something with a pendulum. What's that got to do with Earth turning? I want to see Earth turning, because in science, that's the thing that you're going to be testing. So if you're going to do it outside of science, okay, but you've got to accept it's being done outside of science.
Well,
Do you accept that by measuring anything to do with Foucault's pendulum, you're not measuring the turn of the Earth? So if you're prepared to accept that's outside of science, we can go with it. If you're not, we need to stop here and have a conversation.
it's
And let me
evidence.
just come in there. Let me come in there a second, because that ties back into the point that I was raising earlier on. Upon basic consideration, we have three options, right? The earth beneath us is moving, the sky is moving, or is a combination of both. Now we have to decide what's what, because when we make our decision, whatever pathway we take after there, these pathways are going to be necessarily very divergent. So make sure you know that the earth is turning, and prove it with a Foucault's pendulum then.
So Foucault's pendulum gives good evidence for the Earth turning, because
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It gives good evidence for a pendulum doing stuff. Are we not supposed to be proving the cause of sunrise
Okay.
and sunset to be Earth turn?
Okay, what is your explanation for why Foucault's pendulum does what it does?
Who knows? We can't control all the variables that influence what happens, and we can demonstrate that with the Elias effect. Are you familiar with the Elias effect?
What's the Elias effect? Do explain.
Pendulums seem to do weird things whilst there's an eclipse in play. Now, my point is that if we're right, listen, The definition of pseudoscience is to mistakenly believe that something is based on scientific method when it's not. Now, if we're going to claim that pendulums prove Earth turn, then we're going to have to do scientific method to prove that it falls within science, otherwise it falls without science. So what's the observed phenomena? Sunrise and sunsets, perhaps? Or is it stars turning? Or is it that pendulums move? What are we going to go with for scientific method, for it to be within scientific method? What are we going to have as the dependent variable?
Well, the dependent variable would be the rotation of the pendulum, right? The independent variable can be either your location or it can be the time that you measure it for. I'd prefer. I'd
your
use
location can't be an independent variable. It's not something.
I'd use the time that you can measure it for. So you could measure it for 12 hours.
Let's keep it simple. The dependent variable is pendulum does things. Yeah.
Or the pendulum moves in a predictable manner.
Okay, pendulum moves in a predictable manner. What's the independent variable, the thing that you'll control to prove a cause and effect relationship?
It would be the independent variable would be the time you observe the pendulum for.
Time's not an independent variable because you can't manipulate it.
Yes, it is. I can literally bring up. I can literally Google is time an independent variable, and it will tell you that it is.
I know, and I can Google pictures of Santa. Time is not something that you can control to prove a cause and effect relationship within scientific method.
If time is one of your variables, it is the independent variable. Time is always the independent variable. The other variable is...
Time would allow you to observe a phenomenon, right?
I accept that you're doing that now. Is time an independent variable? I accept that there are results that say that the independent variable can be. What I'd like you to do is Google the phrase independent variable. Not the bit about time. Let's get some definitions for independent variable.
Okay. Independent variable. Definition.
So obviously I'm a couple of seconds behind you on the live stream, so just bear with me while and then just pick the top, say 5. Just randomly pick 2 of the 5 that you see at the top 5.
Okay,
and then
so
just tell me what the definition is.
A variable often denoted by x, whose variation does not depend on that of another.
A variable often denoted by x, whose variation does not depend on that of another. Right? How are you going to vary time?
The amount of... You can essentially say, well, I'll observe it for 3 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours.
You've got to manipulate it to prove that it's the cause of the effect that you believe that you're witnessing, because otherwise it's correlation or pseudoscience. We'll give you correlation, but you've got to manipulate it. You've got to vary it. Let's move to the second one and see what the second one says.
Well, when it comes to this thing here, like why is time an independent variable? It says it is a variable that stands alone and isn't changed by the other variables you are trying to measure.
Yeah, that's called a controlled variable.
And it's you've got a whole lot of things here saying why is time an independent variable?
The thing is, in scientific method, this is not scientific method. This is the results on Google, right? And I accept that they exist, but my position is that scientific method and science is being raped by pseudoscience and bullshit. So can we have another definition for independent variable preferably from something that's not a blog?
Raped.
Or,
That's a bit strong.
No, it's absolutely being raped. This gent that we're talking to now, Planarwalk, thinks that time, which is a man-made construct, can influence the cause of an effect, but doesn't accept that we can manipulate it. He thinks that you can simply let time lapse. That is not control. That is beyond your control, and you've got to manipulate it. So there we go.
Time is...
So what's the... Independent variable is
the
exactly
phenomenon, so that's
like
the category it would fall under, right?
It
takes
is a
time to
variable that
observe the
stands alone.
phenomenon.
Stop, wait. Independent variable is exactly what it sounds like and is a variable that stands alone and isn't changed by other variables you are trying to measure. For example, someone's age might be an independent... Right, where's this citation from? What's the top part of it?
nces.ed.gov.
Right, you can't have... The problem is you can't have someone's age being an independent variable because it's not something you can manipulate. It has to be something that you can manipulate. So this citation... I don't know where this citation is from. What did you say the URL was?
The URL, I can send it to you if you want.
No, just read it to me. www.
nces.ed.gov/nces kids/help/user guide.
Gov. ed.gov, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
As well was in there.
Can we
Kids,
try
so
and
for
find
children.
either a university or not a government establishment? Let's go to a university for a citation, because I don't consider a graphic in tutorial from a government agency to be credible enough when it comes to science. Let's find a different citation that is within to do with science. So let's look for one that's got like a .edu perhaps.
I've got a .org.
Or a dictionary would do. So there was go back up a little bit. It looks like there was a dictionary definition I saw. Independent variable is a variable that represents quantity that is being manipulated in an experiment. So with regards to time, how are you going to manipulate time? You said let it pass, but that's not manipulating it, isn't it?
The amount of time that you observe it for is how you manipulate time. So if you observe
No, you've got to manipulate the time to prove that time's causing it. Now, bear in mind that time is a concept that we give. It's something that we particularize with clocks and stuff. It's something that it's like directions and speeds. They're concepts that we create so that we understand how to communicate with each other. But when it comes to things like chemistry, if you're going to add an alkali to a particular solution to cause an effect, you've got to manipulate that alkali that you're going to add to the solution to cause that effect. You can't just say, well, I'm hoping that a bit of time will pass and that'll cause it to happen, because time isn't the cause. It's you manipulating it that causes it.
Well,
so there we go.
It says here, why does it matter if the variable is independent or dependent? And it says this is the easy.
You're proving causation with an independent variable, and with the dependent variable, you're proving the effect. So the dependent variable is the effect, the phenomena, sunset, for example.
It says this is the easy part. The independent variable is represented by the x-axis, and the dependent variable is represented by the y-axis on your graph. If you can list time on a graph and as on the x-axis, and list like let's say you want to.
Yeah, but let's not talk about representations of independent variables. Let's talk about independent variables that are not representations of, because graphs, they're not independent variables, they're representations of. Yeah, let's go back to definitions for the independent variable.
You can't manipulate time is right. You can't vary it. You just have to let it pass and do your observations.
Unless you're Doc Brown.
The observation process.
Unless you're Doc Brown.
I've actually sent you an EDU link you can send to him if he wants to read it. It's got a definition of it.
EDU?
It says yes.
Well, just go back to the search results. Page 1 will have about 6, 10 of them, 12 of them. Just pick 3 of them and see what from credible, not blogs, just from relatively credible looking citations, and let's see what they say.
You said you would accept an EDU link, right?
Sure.
Okay, so here we go.
Yeah. Okay, I've sent you on Planarwalk.
It says independent variable. An independent variable is a variable you have control over, what you can choose and manipulate. It is usually
right. So unless you're Planner, unless you're Doc Brown, you can't manipulate time, right?
Yeah, can you let me finish? It says it is usually what you think will affect the dependent variable. In some cases, you may not be able to manipulate the independent variable. It may be something that is already there and is fixed, something you would like to evaluate with respect to how it affects something else, the dependent variable like color, kind, time.
No, they're not independent variables. They are literally not independent variables. Color. What did you just say then? Color what?
Color, kind, time.
Right. Color, kind, time are not things that you can manipulate. If that's saying that you don't have to manipulate the color, kind, time, that's not a credible citation.
Well, I could.
Oh, right. So you're deciding what the credible citation is and what actual, we're allowed to accept as a credible citation, because that there
not
is
really. Science
directly direct. No. Well, science seems to be whatever citations you decide it is, whereas he's just directly presenting you with a citation that says something else, and I can go and get a whole bunch of citations that are completely credible that say time is always an independent variable.
Now we have the problem.
No, don't worry. You're the one that has the problem.
No,
you're the one that has the issue with comprehension. The words are right there in front of you.
Craig, listen. Science seems to be contradicting itself. Where would that be?
Sorry?
Like I said, if you listened, you'd hear what I said. I've been speaking slowly.
Something cut out there. I didn't quite catch what you said. Science what?
Science seems to be contradictory. Why might that be?
Oh, no, science most certainly doesn't seem to be contradictory. What the problem is your comprehension of what things are being said. So there is actually no contradictions in science.
Craig,
well, you clearly don't, because time, it can be an independent variable.
It can't. You can't manipulate it. You must be able to.
You don't need to manipulate an independent variable. That is not something
you can't prove cause if you can't manipulate it.
I'm
Craig.
sorry,
you've got to wiggle it.
No, that's not how it works. You don't have to physically wiggle it to have it as an independent variable. No, Sleeping Warrior, I'm sorry. Your limited understanding and very, very strict definition of what is allowed to be an independent variable isn't correct just because you keep demanding it is. An independent variable is exactly what it says there. And an independent variable, time, when you're using it, is always an independent variable. Always.
So you claim.
No, not so I claim. That this is what is a fact, and it is what's defined by science. Right, and I'm sorry, but you are someone that has zero knowledge of science, and you are trying to argue against what science is. And you know what I've got coming for you, don't you? You know exactly what I've got coming for you that is going to disprove every little bit of shit that you've ever said.
That's only coming on the 20th, and we're not at the 20th, are we? So let's not distract.
Oh, yes,
let's stay on
we're
topic.
not at the 20th yet, but everybody here knows exactly what's coming because they've all seen the teasers. They know the interview that I've had.
About something that's not happened yet. Let's talk about what we're talking about.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to play with my little toy. It's fun.
So I just want to...
play with your little toy.
Once you can actually...
an independent variable, Craig?
I have to mute everyone.
Time can be an independent variable.
No, it can't, you moron. You can't control time.
An independent variable is a variable you have control over. What you can choose and manipulate. It is usually what you think will affect the dependent variable. In some cases, you may not be able to manipulate the independent variable.
Right, we need some moderation.
Something that's already there and is fixed. Something you would like to evaluate with respect to how it affects something else, a dependent variable like color, kind, and time. So I'm sorry, but the citations that everybody can find completely disagree with you, Sleeping Warrior. Then you can shout Blue Murder as much as you want about what you think an independent variable is, but you're wrong because time is an independent variable.
Is it acceptable to speak over me every time I speak, Planarwalk?
I was actually about to address that because to start off with there, I could not make out what anybody was saying. So can we please just try and
take turns?
Yeah, take turns.
We take turns. Can we agree that we take turns?
If you don't talk over me, I won't talk over you.
Okay, I agree.
Also, I just want to say that we'll only be going for about 10 more minutes, so we'll try and wrap it up. Okay?
Did you say 10?
10. Like
10. For anyone not New Zealand, that's 10. 10.
Craig, can you define for me, with a credible citation, what is an independent variable?
Yeah, I did that just now. I read it to you.
I couldn't hear you. What is define an independent variable from a credible citation?
An independent variable is a variable you have control over. What you can choose and manipulate
control over time, Craig?
What you think will affect the dependent variable. In some cases, you may not be able to manipulate the dependent variable. Yes, you can have control over time in the sense that you can wait for something to happen. Therefore, that is controlling the time that something is taking to happen.
It isn't controlling, Craig.
Yes. Oh, no, so
you can't control time, Craig.
Yes, you can. And as it says in the citation that I was just reading you, that time can be an independent variable. And anyone in the audience can do that. Sleeping Warrior, you talking over me. We agreed we wouldn't do that. All right. Anybody in the audience can right now just go to Google or anything and just type in, is time an independent variable, and see what comes up. And everybody will see that there are thousands upon thousands of citations that say that you are wrong, but you won't accept them because they are not citations that you think support your particular version of reality.
You done?
Yeah.
Can I respond without interruption?
Yes.
Thank you. Also, if you go to Google and search for independent variable and look up credible citations, you will also find that your independent variable must be manipulated. If you're unable to manipulate your independent variable, it downgrades into a correlation only. If you find contradictory science, that's a problem because somebody is not being consistent with scientific method. Not my problem if they're not being consistent, but it is my problem if people claim that time can be an independent variable, because we all know that unless you're Doc Brown from Back to the Future, nobody can manipulate time. So it's not my problem, it's not our problem, it's not Flat Earth's problem if we can't get consistency from science, because if science appears to be contradicting itself by saying on the one hand, time can be an independent variable when you Google that phrase, but on the other hand, when you Google independent variable, it says that you have to manipulate it. That's a bit of a problem, isn't it? So you have to work out for yourself, what is the definition for independent variable? And I would say, don't look at blogs, don't look at things like Forbes, look at actual EDU citations, and look at 3, 4, 5, 10 of them and see what the theme is. Then you can make your own mind up. And if science contradicts itself, that's a bit of a problem for me. I'm done.
Okay, well, yep, time is an independent variable, because actually the definition of an independent variable isn't just something that you can manipulate. It's actually something that you can change or changes on its own. That is actually what you get when you look at the educational side of learning about... You're interrupting me. I gave you the respect of not interrupting you, so please don't do it to me. Okay, when you actually look at the educational definition of what an independent variable is, you are taught that it is something that can either be changed by you or can change over time. And unless you want to argue with the current syllabus that's taught to most high school people, then that's fine. But we all know how that goes when you try to argue with syllabuses. And so,
Craig,
I haven't finished. So independent variables are most certainly, time most certainly can be classed as an independent variable, because it is something that changes and can be observed to change. So in your very, very strict definition of what you think an independent variable is very, very wrong. And I actually have an entire video about this specific thing prepared for Sleeping Warrior Week. 20th of May, guys. Don't miss it. It's
Sleeping
gonna be
Warrior
amazing.
Week. You're having a laugh.
No. Do you want to? I'll tell you guys what's in it if you want.
No. You've had your turn. Let me respond. If you think that things that are beyond your control can count as an independent variable, I want you to let's apply what you've just said, and I want you to tell me what's the cause in this instance. For every day for the last 10 years, there's a rooster that crows every morning before the sun rises. You make the assumption that the rooster is causing the sun to rise, because every single morning the sun rises just after he finishes crowing. Don't know why, but he seems to be causing it. So you can't control the rooster crowing, but you go outside with your shotgun, you blow its head off, but the sun still rises. Was the rooster the independent variable, Craig?
Let me think. I'm just trying to make it sure you can't take my words wrong. So the only thing that is changing there is the independent variable. So yeah, the rooster. So what you're doing there is you are using that experiment to eliminate one of the causes. And so yes, you could say that the rooster was the independent variable, and by taking the rooster out of the equation, you have successfully concluded what the cause is not. Because of course the idea of science is not to prove something, it is to disprove other things, which is the reason why you have to have null hypothesis, is when you are creating an actual hypothesis. Okay, so to clarify what you are saying, what I would do, because I wouldn't just make that assumption, and I don't think any sane person would, you would go outside and you would say, right, I have a hypothesis that the sun is rising because of, I'm going to say, the Earth turning. My null hypothesis is that the rooster is the cause for the sun rising. Now, I'm talking. Please don't interrupt. I'm talking. Please don't interrupt.
Wrong.
No, I am very not.
No. Your null hypothesis is the opposite. No, your null hypothesis is the opposite, Craig.
No, wait. Okay, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to carry on with what I'm saying, because
you're lying. No, let's get the null hypothesis correct.
No, and my null hypothesis is the rooster. So I do an experiment to eliminate the rooster and find out that no, that wasn't the cause. So my null hypothesis has been confirmed, and I can carry on with the actual hypothesis of what I was looking at.
But you didn't prove Earth turn then, though, did you?
No, but what I did was that I wasn't trying to prove Earth turn. What I did was I disproved that it was the rooster causing the sun to rise.
So you applied your null hypothesis, correct?
Yes, that's exactly what I just said.
Right. So that therefore means that your rooster was not your independent variable. It didn't cause the effect of sunrise, correct?
So what was the independent variable, Riley?
You don't know. You haven't established it. You activated your null.
Okay, you tell me. You tell me.
I think that Sleeping Warrior, you've got it massively wrong, because what you've got there is you've confirmed your null hypothesis. You thought that maybe the crow or the rooster was causing the sunrise. You go out, you blow the brains off the rooster, and you find out that it wasn't causing the sunrise. So yeah, in that case, your rooster is definitely your independent variable, and you've confirmed your null hypothesis.
No. You've activated your null hypothesis and proved that it was not the rooster that was causing it.
The rooster was the independent variable.
Yeah, but it didn't cause.
How do you not get this? No.
No. The independent variable is your presumed cause, right? Your null hypothesis is the opposite. It's your negative result. It's your failure. So if you activate your negative, your null, that you haven't got an independent variable because it didn't cause anything. So Craig was right. The null was activated. Planarwalk's wrong.
No, because I would never make the assumption that the rooster was the cause.
But you think that the Earth turn causes the sunrise and the sunset?
That's my hypothesis, and my null hypothesis would be the rooster.
How are you going to prove it? How are you going to prove Earth turn?
Oh, Bob did that for me. It's cool.
Bob who? Did what?
Bob Nodell proved the Earth turn. He did it fantastically. It was great.
You do understand that Bob Nodell didn't do anything. Somebody else did something, but it wasn't Bob, right?
Well, I guess you could say that the entire documentary lied, but millions of people have seen the opposite. So it's cool, no worries. And don't worry, it's
not cool. It's not cool.
It's confidential.
Not cool.
Can we keep this between us?
Craig, no, it's not cool. You said that Bob proved it. It's okay. Bob didn't prove anything. The only person that might have proved something was a guy called Rick. Do you understand that it wasn't Bob now?
Well, I saw Bob present it, so I'm going to say Bob proved it. And Bob said that he did it. Bob said that he encased it in a bismuth chamber, blah, blah, whatever. Bob said that he did this and that. So I've watched the documentary and so have millions of other people. So
Bob didn't say that.
Well,
so your ability to recall
did.
What was actually said is questionable because Bob did not say that he put it in a bismuth chamber.
Oh, he did that. They tried to. He implied that he was part of the whole operation. Okay.
Yeah, they being the operative word.
And
not him.
Regardless of who did it, what happened there was the Flat Earth community, led by F.E. Core and Bob, used a ring laser gyro to confirm that there's a 15 degree per hour shift of the Earth turning.
No, that's false. That's not what happened.
It is, because millions of people saw it.
No, it wasn't Bob, and it wasn't F.E. Core, and it wasn't a ring laser gyro. Try again, or I'll correct you.
Cool. I'll watch the documentary, so have millions of other people. It's cool, no worries.
Yeah, it was a fiber optic gyro, and it had nothing to do with Bob.
Oh, well, Bob very much said... Bob said the words ring laser gyro. Those are the words that he used in the documentary to describe what it was.
It was actually a fiber optic gyro. Bob gets ring laser and fiber optic gyros mixed up.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm just going on what Bob said. So is Bob lying about everything?
Right, but Bob didn't say he did it, did he?
Well, Bob said we.
Correct. Not him.
Yeah.
First off, I've just got to
so
say...
it's not Bob. So let's just be clear. Bob didn't
Regardless of whether it's a ring laser or a fiber optic gyro, it measured a 15 degree per hour shift of the Earth. All right? And it doesn't measure the light around it.
Craig, wouldn't that be the dependent variable, the effect?
Did it or did it not measure a 15 degree per hour shift?
Yes, it did. Wouldn't that be the dependent variable?
What does that indicate, Riley?
Wouldn't answer my question.
No, yes, I'm asking the questions right now. What does that indicate?
No.
There's a 15
answer my question
shift?
Or answer my question.
Because I'm sick of getting bogged down in semantics.
I'll answer the question. Let me
ask you the question. Let me ask it again. Yes, it measured 15 degrees of rotation. Is that the dependent variable?
Yeah, 15 degrees of rotation is the dependent variable. The independent variable is the amount of time. That's why we've got 15 degrees of rotation per hour.
No. Hang on. Stop. Let's see if Craig agrees. Craig, do you agree that the 15 degrees of rotation was the dependent variable? Do you agree, yes or no?
I agree with what Planarwalk just said, yes.
Great. The second part we'll now deal with. What was the cause of the 15 degrees of rotation in an hour?
The amount of time that we waited for it to happen.
No, time can't be a cause because time isn't anything. We construct time. What's the cause?
No, time is time. We don't construct time. Time is a thing that is part of physics. We don't.
It's our
time
construct. What causes 15
what we
in an hour?
No, you're wrong. What caused the 15 degree rotation of hour is the fact that the Earth was spinning.
How do you know it was the Earth spinning?
Well, because that was what it measures. That's how a gyroscope works. It measures.
Craig.
No, it doesn't.
No,
that's complete and utter bollocks. That's complete and utter rubbish. It doesn't measure light. It measures something happening inside the gyroscope.
By light moving.
Yeah,
Craig,
inside the gyroscope. Right, it's based on the Sagnac effect, which is to do with the fact that
based on
what's
Sagnac,
happening.
and it measures the interference of light.
I'm talking, within the gyroscope, Riley, not around it, within the gyroscope.
Yeah, not momentum.
No. So what's happening? Let me talk, and please stop interrupting. Right, what's happening?
Well, get it right then, so I don't have to interrupt.
I'm trying to educate you because you never get things right.
You're not trying to educate. You're misrepresenting statements.
No, I'm trying to educate you because you don't know anything. So if you will be quiet for 1 second and listen, I will educate you. Oh, that's keep the facts accurate, wonderful.
and we won't have to interrupt.
I will keep the facts accurate, and you don't need to interrupt.
So
because
what
you
does
don't
the
know
fiber
what
optic
fact is.
gyro measure, Craig?
The fiber optic gyro measures what it measures is an interference pattern in the light inside the gyroscope because something is moving. Right?
Not because something's moving.
Riley, stop talking over me now.
Of light because the light is moving.
Riley, stop talking over me. Okay.
No,
what
get it
is
right,
measuring?
Craig.
If you stop talking, I will. Sleeping warrior, you're like a child.
So what's being measured?
Okay. Now be quiet while the adults talk. What's being measured is the interference pattern.
Prick.
Now you're going to listen.
What is being measured, Craig?
If you're going to listen and let the adults talk like actual adults, that'd be fantastic.
Quit with the adults. Answer the questions. What's being measured?
Now, stop interrupting me. I'm glad that people are watching this.
What is being measured, dickhead?
Now, you're going to be quiet and let me talk like an adult having a conversation?
What is being measured, Craig?
Okay, now, I will explain once more. What's being measured is the interference pattern created by the fact that light is coming back at a different point in time because something has moved.
Correct.
Not different point in time, because something has moved within the gyroscope.
No, not something has moved. You've just said that it's the light that's being measured, the interference of the light.
The interference pattern of the light within the gyroscope, because the time taken for the light to travel has
now
reduced.
Answer me this, Craig.
No, I'm talking. I haven't finished explaining. Right, the time taken for the light to travel.
More explanation.
Right,
does it measure?
I'm going to explain it anyway. So what happens is it measures the interference pattern in the light because the time taken for the light to travel back along one of the paths has either been reduced or increased because of the rotational speed of what's happening on the physical gyroscope moving. So because of that, it measures an interference pattern within the light. I didn't say it measures momentum. I just said it measures the interference pattern based on the physical movement and therefore the
not physical movement.
Time.
Craig. No. You've got it wrong. You're misunderstanding.
Let
me correct you.
You're wrong.
Because
you don't correct anyone. You don't educate anyone because you are a moron. Now,
so you
I
are
have just educated you as to what the Sagnac effect is and how it
Planarwalk is deliberately stopping me from reacting.
How am I deliberately stopping you from reacting?
No, he's saying that I am, even though he's attempted to completely talk over me for the past 2 minutes.
I'm trying to correct you.
You can't correct me because you don't know anything.
I can correct you.
You can't even comprehend the words.
Stop him from talking, for fuck's sake.
Okay, what I'm going to do is you each get... I'm going to put a timer up and you each get 1 minute to have closing statements.
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
I'll give you 1 minute, and then after that, I'll end up the stream. So I'm just going to bring up a timer, and when the timer reaches 0, timer 1 minute. All right. And
Planarwalk, thanks for letting me come on and get some more footage for Super Mario Week. Yeah. That was nice of you.
Okay, so Riley, 3, 2, 1. 1 minute starts now.
Bob Nodell did not do anything. A guy called Rick did. He used a fiber optic gyro. It measures light interference applying the Sagnac effect. It does not measure momentum. That is the problem that we have because we accept that 15 degrees of rotation of something is causing the 15 degrees of measurement. The question that we have is, what is causing the measurement? It's false to believe that the fiber optic gyro measures momentum. It simply measures light. We observe that the stars appear to be rotating above us. Einstein says that the stars are not rotating above us, it's us that's rotating. Fiber optic gyros do not measure momentum, but mechanical gyros do measure momentum. They do not show 15 degrees. Fiber optic gyros measure light. They do show 15 degrees, and we do observe the lights above our head moving at 15 degrees. The fiber optic gyro does not show what's moving because it doesn't measure momentum. Anybody that claims that Bob proves them is wrong.
And Fight the Flat Earth, you also get a minute. Right. Are you ready?
Thanks.
3,
Yeah, ready.
2, 1. 1 minute starts now.
Yeah, everything he just said about gyros was completely wrong, really. The Zagnac effect is what I explained it to be. So the literal thing that it's measuring is the interference patterns of light inside the gyroscope, nothing to do with what is outside of the gyroscope. There is literally no way like that it could ever register the light from the sky with the stars moving. Also talking about physical gyroscopes, I already showed you a mechanical gyro compass that actually works and does exactly the effect that we expect it to, based on the gyroscopic precession that we would expect with a 15 degree per hour shift. So both of your points there completely blown out the water. This was a lovely prelude to Sleeping Warrior Week. I came on here and got to play with a toy quite nicely. Thank you.
Oh, is that all?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to end it up now. Hopefully you managed to get everything you need to out of the way. But yeah, I'm going to first read the super chats because Sky Wizardless, I've already read this one out, but I do want to thank him because he it's £10 and he says multi Tom Tom can GTFO or get the fuck out.
But was Tom Tom in there?
Oh no, Tom Tom was in the chat.
Still trying to get your super chat money.
Yeah. Aussie Globehead donated 50, I think it's Australian dollars. It looks like 50 Australian dollars. Anyway, thank you. And he says multi Dum Dum has left, so he can't have any of the super chat. And Aussie Globehead also gave me another $10 saying the casual spaceman said that he'd like to come on. He basically asked to come on to talk about things because he's a political activist and that kind of stuff. So thank you, Aussie Globehead. That's very much appreciated. And Sarcastic Barman just gave a link to pardon me, this link that I've got up on screen here. So thank you, Sarcastic Barman. But yeah, anyway, let me just switch over to the outro. All right, so leave a like.
No, I'll just say bye quickly and then I'll jump out. Thanks for having me on, bud.
Yeah, no problem. But anyway, leave a like and subscribe if you liked this stream. If you want to join it, you always can. You can join my Discord server, and this one had quite a few people show up, and some of those people were really respectful. Like, for example, Truth Warrior, he was really respectful. But yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, leave a comment letting me know what you think. But anyway, I will see you in the next stream. Between you and me, thank you for watching. I don't know what to play. Let me think of something real quick. Oh, that's right. That probably didn't sound quite as good because I didn't know where my pickers had gone, but yeah. Anyway, I don't know why anyone is still here. How do we have 74 people here? Just why? Stream's over. Go do something productive. Actually,